Bingo.
Cheers.
Cheers. Happy Whiskey Wednesday, everyone. Welcome to the Bourbon and BS podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, please share it. Tell us what you're drinking. Tell us what you're smoking, or really what you enjoy drinking and what you enjoy smoking tonight. Thank you again for tuning in. We have our good friend Scott GK on. Steve just met him really tonight, right?
No, we met actually before, and then he stopped in.
Yeah.
No, at the shop too.
At the shop. Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. But Scott's got a lot of knowledge about whiskey, and he's actually started something pretty special, I think, and we have a lot to talk about tonight. So as Steve and as I am sharing, and I think Scott's going to too, we encourage you to share this. A couple weeks ago with Dino on, we had a record number, I think it was 56 shares, so we want to beat that so we can get this viewership up and further than what we can imagine, and we know that we can do that with your help.
So share now. How's everyone doing? Everyone on Facebook Live, before we start recording the podcast itself, what are you guys drinking and smoking tonight? It's beautiful spring weather in Columbus, Ohio. So I don't know if you guys are in Columbus, if you're somewhere, other places that you have good weather, hopefully. But what are you guys smoking and drinking?
Okay.
You continue talking for just a second.
No, I'm fine.
Boom, boom,
So
boom,
as Steve's
boom.
sharing, I know Scott's going to share, I think.
The Pollock brings the awkward silence.
There you
it's
go.
my specialty.
Yeah.
Perfect. I knew this was going to be good.
We'll see.
Wow. It's early.
Yeah, but Scott was lovely enough to bring us a bottle tonight. Bond and Lilliard. I have never seen it or even heard of it, so thank you for bringing this tonight.
No
Scott.
buy. No buy.
Huh?
I haven't either.
Yeah.
It's a special bottle.
Yeah.
There's a dynamite story behind it.
For
Well,
sure.
let's start recording then, and we can get right into it. If everyone's
Yeah.
shared up in the garage here, you good?
I'm good.
Yep.
Everyone turn off their volumes.
Mine is off.
Cool. Everyone turn off their Nate Hales.
Yep.
He's off.
Nate and Dustin's in the garage, people. Thank you.
Why are you staring at me so weird? Cool. This is getting weird. All right, let's go.
You
Ready?
broke him.
Ready?
Yeah.
All
Happy Whiskey Wednesday, folks. I'm Jake Sanders along with Steve Crane, and we make up the Bourbon and BS podcast. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers to a wonderful springtime weather on Whiskey Wednesday, and we're happy to be here. We hope that you guys are going to enjoy this podcast as much as we know we are, but we have our great, good friend, Scott GK, on. I know Scott through whiskey and bourbon. I've met him through that, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about tonight, the stories of bourbon and really what it can do for you, and basically how the relationships and the community has created itself in the last 20 years or so.
I like the saying, what can bourbon do for you?
Yeah. You do?
A lot.
I'm happy about that. I really am.
I wish I could take credit for it. That was Jake's idea.
It's just about, I like the way it's worded,
Yeah.
because it can do a lot.
It really can.
Mostly positive.
I agree.
Yeah.
I truly, truly agree. But
Thank you for agreeing with the mostly part. Yeah.
But we are so excited for you guys to join us tonight. So again, thank you. But if this is your first time tuning in, please give us a 5-star review, and please tell one friend about this, and we'll get this thing rolling. So we normally talk about a whiskey, we talk about a cigar, and then we talk about a life topic, which, like I said, tonight is going to be what can bourbon do for you and the stories behind it.
How's your week?
It's been good. I know we haven't really seen each other because I didn't work last night, but
But it was Alicia's birthday, so that was nice that you were able to do that.
Yeah, we went out to dinner and we had a good time. So, I know you and Liz had a wonderful evening on Monday night.
So it started that way, and kind of ended that way.
You guys
And there was like a little bit of a roller coaster.
start talking politics again.
It was a little bit of a continuation after last Wednesday.
Everyone missed the after.
They didn't miss anything.
They missed the after
They
the
didn't
BS or beyond the BS.
We're not going to get too far into the conversation topics, but it was preceded by 2.5 bottles of red wine, and then Well, you saw the empty bottle of Eagle Rare. So it's a long Monday.
Yeah, but that wasn't full, so I'll give you that.
It's about half.
Was that all you?
She wasn't drinking it.
Wow. Jesus.
Like I said, what can bourbon do for you?
And wine.
Well, yeah.
And to you.
Yeah.
At times.
You gotta stretch first before a night like that. You know, you don't want to pull anything.
I'm just baffled, really.
Me too.
Does the wine not affect you? Like wine, I can't drink wine.
I was
Next
great.
morning,
I was great.
wine leaves a massive headache. I mean, just
Surprisingly, though, like here's the thing: is that I worked open to close yesterday, so
I know
the very next day, and I, surprisingly was just I was good. I was a little tired, a little wired. It's good.
You know, my favorite part about that was like I woke up in the morning.
Yeah, I did a you up to Jake at like 2:40, thinking that it's a normal time on a Monday.
Yeah.
Because he had texted me earlier. I texted back like 1 something, didn't get a response back because I was responding to him, and then I was
I want to see the recording.
I didn't record the video.
Oh,
No.
So it's just audio.
It's just audio, and I don't even
For
know what I
how long?
talked about. It's tough to say. It was just a.
I think we
it
should.
It was a event night, and you only have the only copy I think on your phone because I deleted everything else.
We should release it as a
I'll probably want to listen
unknown.
first. I think they'll know it's me.
Unknown episode.
Oh, okay. I think they'll know it's me.
Yeah. So, like we said, we're accompanied by Scott GK.
Moving on.
Yeah.
There you go.
We said volume, Scott.
Rookie mistake.
Rookie mistake, and here I am.
Well, how's it going, man?
You know what? Polish man can't complain.
Yeah.
That's how we're put together, man.
Good.
Enjoying life.
I haven't seen you in quite some time.
It's been a bit.
Yeah.
It's been a bit. I watched you on the podcast, so I feel like I haven't lost touch. But
I haven't either, but I just missed you, man.
I miss you as well, my friend.
I miss sharing a nice pour with you, so it's really great to have you on here, and especially that you're friends with Dino, and that was kind of a thing within itself that I didn't know.
Yeah, it was the craziest thing. When Dino was on the air in Sunny 95, I'd listen to him every morning, Dino and Stacy, and always had like a secret connection with him that we were both from the same hometown.
Yeah.
So he was, kind of a local hero back home.
Very cool.
Yeah. And to actually get to meet him and talk to him, become friends with him, and now collaborate with him, is just really spectacular to me.
And tell us a little bit about what you're doing with Dino, because so Scott has created Ohio Bourbon Times publication. Is it just online, or is it?
No, actually, I was sitting back. Oh gosh, it's been couple of months ago, I guess, and I was going through one of the liquor magazines that you pick up in the in the liquor stores.
Yeah.
I brought one home, and I was enjoying a pour of it was probably Weller, something like that.
Yeah.
And I keep going through and looking for bourbon articles in this magazine, and I got mango flavored liquor. I've got orange flavored vodka. I've got grape flavored vodka.
All the flavors.
Hell, there was cucumber flavored. Ridiculous stuff.
That's refreshing.
It is refreshing on a summer day, as I'm told. Heck yeah.
It's a health drink.
Don't cheat yourself.
Treat yourself.
Exactly.
Bingo.
So I'm like, damn, there's just nothing in here about bourbon. That's really all I want to read about.
That's what most people actually want to read about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's cucumber vodka is not like on the cutting edge anymore.
You can only go so far with that.
Yeah.
But I'm like, man, so I searched online. I said, is there anything going on in Ohio that I can subscribe to, that I can read online? Nothing.
Really?
Nothing. So I'm like, well, wouldn't it be cool if, and I think I probably had 3 pours by this point.
Yeah.
So it seemed extremely logical that
It's a good creative moment.
Yeah,
usually.
in 2019, it would be a hell of a great idea to create a print newspaper.
There you go.
Winning, right?
Yeah, that media.
Yeah, it's burgeoning.
It's strong. I think it's gonna
burgeoning
make it,
industry.
It's a great idea.
But the more I thought about it over the next couple of weeks, I was like, you know what? What is more old school? What is more old school Americana than bourbon?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, nothing, right? Certainly not tomato-flavored vodka.
That sounds terrible.
I imagine it would be
You
terrible.
probably put it in like a Bloody Mary or something.
Yeah.
You
Found
think?
it.
Ooh.
I think it makes sense.
But, so, I'm like, nothing more old school than that, and nothing more old school, and I'm old enough to remember this, before we had cell phones.
Yeah.
I mean, when you went into the bathroom, sit on the can, you brought the newspaper with you.
right.
And that's what you did.
Yeah.
And there's a certain nostalgia to feeling that newsprint.
Yeah.
It even has a smell to it, that newsprint in your hand. And to read about such a classic beverage and the stories and everything that emanate from it off of that classic newsprint.
You're doing classic newsprint?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ain't that cool?
Yeah.
I mean, think Columbus Alive,
Mhm.
only about bourbon. I won't get in
Yeah.
trouble for using Columbus Alive as an example. will
I don't think they're
I don't
listening,
think-
so I think we'll be all
Well,
right.
if they are,
And if they are, hey, nice publication.
Nice
Columbus Alive, check it
publication.
out.
Good job.
Here in Columbus, Ohio.
there you
Trademark
go.
someone.
Yeah.
Invoice on the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Shout out.
So that's pretty much how it came about, and I'm a bit of a stubborn, bullheaded Pollock from Steubenville. So once I get something in my brain,
Sure.
you know, there's generally no talking me down from it.
Yeah.
So this is happening.
It's happening. Oh, brother, it's happening.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, you're, like you said, like 2-3 months into it.
Yeah,
I mean, you're
I mean,
already.
You haven't released the first.
First edition is going to be coming out in May.
Okay.
Middle of May. It's actually going to coincide with my parents' 50th wedding anniversary.
Very
Wow.
cool.
So,
Very cool.
yeah, I thought it would be a nice memorial. Plus, I might not have to buy him anything now. So,
Probably
you
should though.
probably should,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I probably.
Maybe a bottle of bourbon.
Yeah, they don't drink this stuff. More for
you.
me.
Like, hey, happy anniversary.
But it's mine.
Do you have a glass?
Yeah.
But I wanted to do a bit more than just talk about the bourbon. Because that's how you start a good righteous fight.
Yeah.
Is talking about the bourbon. This is the best bourbon I've ever had. Well, no, it's crap. Oh, I don't think it's crap. I think it's wonderful. Well, it's crap because the mash bill, you know, divided by pi and, you know, put into the square root of the circumference of the
math.
bottle. You know, now we're talking math, and I just want to be drinking.
Is that phrase in the publication already?
It should be.
Which
I really
phrase?
think it,
Which
because
phrase?
that was amazing.
Which phrase?
Yeah, I forget it already.
Damn it. Damn.
We can run it back. We can
Yeah,
run it back.
we'll loop that back. But I don't want.
Need someone
There's
taking notes
enough
in the garage.
arguing about bourbon that goes on the interwebs.
Take notes.
There's plenty of arguments. There's plenty of debates.
It's silly,
It is silly.
but I think that's part of the hobby for some people.
It is.
Same thing with sports, right? You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, who's better, MJ or LeBron?
Oh, LeBron, and I'll fight you otherwise.
Jesus, you sound dumb. That happens in the cigar shop
All the time.
every other week, and that's being generous that it doesn't happen more often.
At least
the
3
sports.
times a week.
Yeah, yeah.
At
We had
least.
that. Yeah, it was a conversation last night again.
Really?
Oh yeah, yeah. Who's the best? Actually, LeBron's kind of leaving the conversation a little bit, which is all part of the conversation.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, go on.
See? All the more reason to drink.
Bingo.
If you can't find a reason, that's where the problem lies.
To drink?
Yes.
Fair. Yeah. Because you can celebrate, which is the positive side.
Sure.
Right? You can get together with friends.
I think Cole Swindell made a song about this.
He did, actually.
And
I think a lot of people have made songs about
Called
whiskey.
Reason to Drink.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the one
You ain't
thing
worth the whiskey.
that unites us
Yes.
as bourbon aficionados is the stories that come with it.
Right.
Sure.
And that's what I want to tell in the newspaper.
Yeah.
You know, I'll do an occasional review, but, you know, it's my opinion, my palate.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
Everybody's got one. I'll give you my opinion. But I like to dig a little bit deeper for the story behind it. Our first feature interview, I decided just to go full balls in controversial right off the bat. Can I say balls in on here?
You can say whatever the fuck you want.
Fuck.
I love it when people haven't listened to that with my
Yeah,
we put an explicit sign on all of our podcasts.
Fair enough. All right.
Yeah.
I found a new home.
Bingo.
So the very first feature article is with Jeff Mattingly of Bourbon 30.
Yeah, you had mentioned that. Yeah.
And he, as you know, there's been a swarm of controversy that has surrounded that
in the bourbon world.
And I think the vast majority of it, if not all of it, was somewhat horseshit. Lot of other things going on there. Again,
do you address that in the article?
I do not, and I don't purposely. And
well, if you don't, kind of like we I think we talked about it a little bit before, but kind of give a quick synopsis, if you will, like about what the bullshit was.
So said bullshit arose from a blogger coming in and basically setting him up to fail.
Tour the factory, tour the distillery.
Tour the facility.
Yeah.
And some games ensued. He says, "Oh, I saw trash cans and all this, everything being mixed in trash cans," and it was really, really, a kick in the nuts.
Yeah, for sure.
And I went down. I never met Jeff Mattingly before. Had a couple of his whiskeys. Loved them all.
Yeah.
What are his whiskeys?
Oh gosh, he does a different release every week.
Okay. It's stuff that you can't really get a hold of. Needless to say.
Not available in Ohio. Okay. But here's his business model. And his business model was just fascinating to me. It's basically you pay $120 a bottle, which is what you're gonna pay for a good high-end bourbon. It's not out of line.
Right.
But this is the beauty of it. You pull up to his place, and it's right across from a park there in downtown Georgetown, Kentucky. Unassuming building. If it didn't have a sign on it, you might think it was a tire shop or something like that. But you go in, and there's a foyer there, and the foyer is decorated really nicely. There's some open bottles on a couple of barrels, little sampling cups.
Yeah. Very cool.
You take a sample before you go back. Walk in, first thing you get is a hug.
Yeah.
They're huggers down there.
Really?
Everyone?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
But this is the cool part.
Okay.
There's basically two of them. The whole town comes in shifts to actually help. Pick a barrel.
Yeah.
Really?
Put labels on bottles.
Yeah.
Wax the bottles.
Mm-hmm.
It is the most community affair I could ever imagine.
Is that all volunteers?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, they come in. Now, you go into the back room, and he'll have 30, 40 open barrels back there. And it's stamped right on top where the barrels are from. A lot of them are Kentucky sourced, a lot of them are MGP juice. So he goes around and he actually chooses these barrels.
Nice.
Yeah.
Buys them. They're all opened. You go from barrel to barrel. You sample this one. You find a few that you like. Then Jeff comes in and you start mixing them. Say, maybe this might taste good with this. And now you mess with the ratios.
You're pouring.
And by the time you're done, you have the bottle that is perfect for you.
Wow.
It is exactly what you want because you...
Kind of like this guy you got there.
Yeah.
That wasn't...
The suicide bottle.
Yeah, that's not very educated on what is in there, but...
And then...
Plenty educated. I'm going to try some of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then...
That's why I stopped with it.
You can buy as many of them as you want.
So...
Of that mixture.
Of that mixture.
Blend, yeah.
So
And you name it.
Can anyone do that?
Anybody can do it. Walk on in.
Wow. Interesting.
During the interview, there was a guy who was wrapping his up. He came all the way in from Maryland.
Yeah.
And he was bottling stuff for his friends. He's on the phone with me. He says, "I can't fucking believe it. Where am I going to, where can you blend your own bottle.
Yeah.
So the business plan itself is really cool.
That's great.
Friendly people. You know, the bourbon is tremendous.
Yeah.
I mean, it was hard to pick.
Yeah. Does he allow like single barrels, like if you really like this one and you don't really like the blend, does he
Sure.
allow you just to bottle what came out of that one barrel?
Absolutely.
Might have to make a trip.
Oh, I would highly recommend it. He actually did a special blend for Ohio Bourbon Times.
Very cool.
And each pick has its name, and this one was the name wound up with our friend Martin. He came up with this one. You down with OBT? Yeah, you know me.
There you go.
That's fun.
That's good.
That is very good.
But so that was
It's a big label.
Yeah, it is.
It's a lot of.
It's a lot of words.
like
It's
it.
a lot of words.
It's probably a Transformer sticker or something. And then
Could be.
and we can get into that later, but it's kind of funny the way the labels have introduced themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But not getting too far. I know we're kind of in 18 minutes, but
No, I like it. I like it.
Who are our sponsors for tonight, Steve?
So same as usual so far. We've got Altadis, which is if you're watching the video, the flag or banner behind us, the Romeo Julieta, Monte Cristo, H. Upmann. We have from them tonight, I brought one that we haven't done yet. It's an H. Upmann Banker, the Banker, which is called that because the Upmann brothers were actually bankers before they got into the cigar industry way back. So that's where that name came from.
Very cool.
But also the Tinderbox of Easton, which we're smoking the CAO Brazilia, which I will touch on. And then also the BS Cigar Company, which I have a BS Silver. And for those of you that are fans of the show, if you like the BS Gold, I did smoke samples of the BS Toro again, round 2 this time, and I think we're good to go. So we should be getting all 3 sizes back in of the BS Gold.
You think?
I know we will. I just I don't know exactly when, because we were supposed to get the samples at the end of this month, and we got them last Friday. Or actually, we got them. No, we got them yesterday, Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was ahead of schedule. So I played phone tag with Paul Palmer from Aganor Salif today, and hopefully we'll touch base tomorrow, and we'll get those here as quickly as possible.
Very good.
And for those of you that want to order any, you're welcome to do so. Also with the CAO Brazilia, if you guys mention Bourbon BS podcast, either when you order over the phone, want us to ship you like a 5-pack or a box, you'll get 15% off. If you stop in the shop in Columbus, Ohio, you'll get 15% off if you mention Bourbon BS podcast on CAO Brazilians.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm very, very excited to get those back in.
Yes.
So, tonight, like we mentioned before, we talk about a whiskey, we talk about a cigar, and we have our live topics. So tonight, we're talking about Bond and Lilliard that Scott was gracious enough to bring us. It is a 100 proof whiskey, around 7 years old, and this comes out of Wild Turkey Distillery, Jimmy Russell and Eddie Russell. But the best part about this is that they're resurrecting and bringing back a bourbon company, a whiskey that was dead. And they've brought it back, and I know that Steve, when Scott and I mentioned this when we were setting up for the podcast, I said that the history would explain itself. So the reason why that Campari and Wild Turkey did this, fittingly enough, was because that William Bond and C.C. Lilliard were based out of Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. And so that is where Wild Turkey is today.
Right.
Now, it was also accompanied and also distilled. James Rippey started James Rippey Distillery in 1868, and then Bond and Lilliard was in 1869. And they were both in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, fittingly enough, Wild Turkey is pretty much the only one in Lawrenceburg. Four Roses isn't too far. Fittingly enough, that's who had resurrected this from the dead. And as we're looking at it, it's an amazing bottle. It's only 375 milliliters. And how much did you pay for this again, Scott?
It's an expensive bottle for a 375. It goes for around $50.
Yeah,
That is expensive.
And that was in Ohio.
Yes, it's on the shelf right now in Ohio. So it's attainable, but it is a very limited,
Just batch. I mean, it says batch.
There's been
batch
2
two,
batches.
This is
yeah.
the second batch. But what's really cool is how this was resurrected.
Yeah.
It was actually resurrected from the original DNA of a 100 milliliter sample of pre-Prohibition bourbon that they found in the back of a shelf at a warehouse at Wild Turkey.
They tried to recreate that flavor.
They recreated the flavor. Eddie Russell, through tasting analysis, he said he thinks he got it just about balls on.
Really.
So it's like you're drinking 100 years ago.
History, yeah. I almost thought when you said that, I didn't know that information, but when you said that, I didn't know if this was what that bottle is that Jimmy Russell keeps in his office. If you ever watch these like bourbon documentaries, or even the one where Matthew McConaughey comes in and is talking to Jimmy and they're in his office.
Right.
Whoever is big named, he kind of gives them a sample of this pre-Prohibition whiskey that he's got sitting on his desk. And I didn't know if that's what this was, so it's interesting.
Maybe one of these days he'll give us a sample.
Maybe, yeah. We
That
gotta
makes
go
sense.
down there
No,
first.
yeah.
No, it's cool on the label. It does say 1869. The two of them, right?
Yep.
William Bond, Christopher Lilliard, partnered to create a golden, delicate style of Kentucky bourbon.
Yep. And
Highly revered and awarded the grand prize in 1904 St. Louis World's Fair.
that's awesome.
That's pretty cool.
So they really brought it back from the dead. And what's cool about it is that
Look who it's distilled and bottled by.
the American Medicinal Spirits Company.
I like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
like that too.
You can keep it in your bathroom.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, well,
Your
that's
medicine
why-
bag, you know what I mean? Like, whatever, really.
That's why it's a $3.75 bottle. Otherwise, it wouldn't fit on the shelf in the medicine cabinet.
Do you think that's why they went with that?
You know what? It works for me.
Because $100 for a fifth is a little much.
Yeah.
A little bit.
But 50 for that is
Yeah.
doable.
Well, I mean, and I don't want to get too nerdy about it, but it would make sense.
Oh yeah.
Completely, because that's what, it's a pint. So what was it, every 2 weeks you were able to up for another pint back in Prohibition if you had a medicinal,
If you had a prescription.
if you had a
wanted to
prescription
drink.
from a doctor.
Yeah.
If you wanted a drink.
Yeah, you re-upped every 2 weeks. But that would make sense.
I gotta say, it's fucking good.
It is delicious.
I really like this. It's a shame you can't get it very easily, right? I mean, it's not something I've never heard of it, so it's almost a shame that it's not really a popular one.
Right now, the shelves in Ohio are flush with it.
Yeah.
So if you want some, I've been trying to quietly stockpile. So I'll
like
have some in the future.
Yeah.
I like it.
Because when it goes away, it goes away.
It'll be gone.
Then we gotta wait for batch 3.
Yeah.
Because you'll have the entire second batch. It sounds like.
A good part of it,
Possibility.
yeah.
Possibility.
Yeah, storing it in my liver.
What I like about this is
Temporarily.
the nose on this is, I've had probably like 3 1-ounce pours, just trying to, I'm acquainted with it now, obviously, but
Getting more and more acquainted.
Scott, we've talked about numerous times on the podcast about how, I don't know how you feel about this, but how some distilleries, they all have a certain flavor profile, that they have a certain flavor profile when it comes to that distillery's distillate. And so with me, like Wild Turkey has its classic notes, Jim Beam, Buffalo Trace, stuff like that. With this, I get that classic brown sugar, cinnamon on the back side, kind of creamy note that Wild Turkey is known for, and plus that bite that Wild Turkey is known for. But the nose and the taste is loaded with citrus. Do you get that?
I do.
Which is interesting. It's got a lot, I wouldn't say like lime and lemon, but a lot of just like
Acidic notes to it.
yeah, like, and I don't want to be too specific, but like apricots or like small oranges, or like Dustin would probably say with me, clementines.
You would say that.
Yeah. So, but just that really, just this, it's a strong citrus note with this.
It's stupid complex. which I enjoy about it.
At first it's not, and then you kind of just...
The first time I tasted it, I'm like, whoa.
Really?
As soon as it hit my mouth, I was like, oh no. But then immediately, as soon as I swallowed it, I swished it around, then swallowed it, then it just exploded from the back.
Yeah.
And I couldn't put it down.
Yeah. It's amazing to me with this of the color. It's not like a, it's not like a deep amber color.
It's like apple juice. That's what it is.
Yeah. It really looks like a Scotch.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Some Scotches maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not super light, but I don't even know. It's not amber, I would say. Maybe, I don't know.
It would fit in well into a sippy cup. That kind of apple juice kind of color.
Yeah,
I think that's...
I feel like, between the medicinal side of it,
more like honey,
the medicine cabinet, and now sippy cups, I think we're just looking for ways to drink this like during the afternoon at work.
Yeah, we're going down a dangerous rabbit hole
here. Maybe that's why it comes in a small bottle, so your temptation is eliminated as soon as that little bottle's going.
It's portion control.
Okay.
What do you think of this, Steve?
I like it. I actually agree with a bit of the, I don't know about citrus, it's almost some sort of fruitiness. Definitely a lighter smell than it is flavor. I mean, it's definitely different from when you smell it to when you sip on it. But Scott, what you said though, when you first took a sip of it, I don't get that kind of blast as far as, like, oh God, it's more, I think the first initial for me, and maybe it's because I'm smoking the Brazilia, but it's very tame at first, but as soon as it hits, the back of your tongue and you swallow, it hits a switch, like turns on a little bit, and it's all of a sudden very powerful. But then the finish is actually real pleasant. So when you say complex, I think that it's consistent sip after sip for me. But as far as just every step of the way, the process, smell to sipping to swallow, and then the finish, it's quite a bit of stuff going on there.
Now, I think what happened on my very first sip, I nosed it, and the taste as it first hit didn't necessarily match up with what I was expecting.
Surprising.
So
I got you
it
there.
wasn't. It was more of a surprise than a gag.
No,
maybe my sound effect game is off.
That's up to the listeners and the viewers. I don't know. I get it. I get it.
But it quickly became one of my favorites.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm probably going to have one glass. It's, it'd be interesting, if you do have, because a lot of times when you're sipping on these, you go glass 2 or 3 of the same one. Glass 3 definitely tastes different, and it gets muted. But I don't know if this one would. I don't know if you've done that where you've had,
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah, fair. If you did, I'd confirm it.
Fair enough.
I was just doing the sample of the cigar, and I just lit up the CAO Brazil, and then had my last. I've had 3 1 ounce pours, like I said, so I'm pretty much done with that. So Scott can take some of that home at least. But right off the bat, I'm gonna say this pairing isn't the best, but it may change with Steve's input on that later. But thank you again for bringing that, Scott. It's really good.
Did you look at the front of this?
Yeah.
I mean, this thing's got,
look at all the sayings.
Yeah, that's what I was going to actually bring up. It's got a lot going on in very limited words, but it really flows well together. There's a lot of sayings to it. Nate was joking, saying, Steve, going to read the bottle, but I mean, it has a lot
what does it say?
On there. No, I mean, just saying, there's very, and with the lighting in here, it's tough, but it's got, Whiskey Barons, it's got Anderson County, Kentucky, USA, the Whiskey Barons Collection, 100 proof. You've got mutual confidence in each other's judgment and integrity linked the hearts of these two sturdy men.
Yeah.
So very specific, and then it's beauty in the sparkle, real delicacy of flavor, superiority in strength. It bears no equal. 1904 winner. St. Louis Expo, 100 proof. There's a lot on here.
Yeah.
Well, back before the internet, that is how people talk shit. They put it on a
label.
They put it on a label. And that's basically what they were doing there, is talking shit on everybody else's bourbon.
We won.
Yeah.
Well, they did win in 1904 in St. Louis.
Yeah.
The World's Fair. And it's, again, and I can't stress this enough, the story behind it excites me way more than the actual liquid that's in the bottle. The story, I think, brings the liquid to life.
Yeah.
I'll give you that, yeah. Which is a lot of what you're talking about with your publication.
Exactly. How's that for a smooth segue?
Yeah,
exactly.
Dog, please.
You set it up, you know what I mean?
Set
it up.
Oh, I didn't even see it. I'm sorry.
Just-
Steve's still got the cigar part though, so we
No. Yeah, it's good.
It's interesting though with this is like you said, the story, how that is more interesting than the actual whiskey. But we've actually talked about how, you know, how the like Boone County and the Blonde Brothers and Widow Jane and stuff like that have created these stories, and then
that is the operative word.
Yeah.
Created.
Yeah.
What was the one that was the Under Armour guy?
Oh,
because that was a complete story from what we looked into.
Yeah,
which is great.
It wasn't Seagram's, obviously.
Something like that, though.
Yeah, it was something like that.
But it was about like some shack by the river that doesn't exist or something like that. It was.
Yeah, but it's MGP juice, you know what I mean?
Right.
So,
It's great. It was a great bottle. And it was actually good whiskey.
it was a good ride.
But that I think is the greater point. Do we rely on the stories that the distilleries, the manufacturers, the marketing arms of the distilleries tell us? Or do we create our own around the juice?
There's two sides of it. I mean, cigars are much the same way. I mean, it's you can come up with this really creative box, this really creative band. You can come up with this really cool bottle, you know what I mean, and this cool name and all this yada yada yada. But if once you crack the bottle, once you light the cigar, and it doesn't stand up on its own, you're limited. So you have to have a good, in my opinion, core product.
Absolutely.
You know, as far as what you're actually going to be consuming or enjoying or whatever it is, it's like getting someone to a resort and then it fucking sucks and you can't leave until your trip's over.
Right.
It's terrible. But the brochure looked amazing. You know what I mean? But, I think when it comes down to it, you actually have to have that. But you do have to set yourself apart. I mean, there is that creative side of marketing. Anytime you're selling something, you have to have something there. And I think people buy, I say it all the time, from people they like. So, I mean, you have a good story and you have a good distillery, once you get into it, or if you just happen to blindly grab a bottle or a cigar off the shelf, a lot of times it's usually related to the name, it's related to the price point, it's related to the graphics on it, as far as the overall presentation. Cigars, like I said, are the same way, where you have to pick it for a reason.
Exactly.
It's very rare that you're going to go down a bourbon, aisle with a blindfold on, partially because you're probably going to knock something over, which is not good. But I mean,
they frown on that.
Yeah. But I mean, like as far as like just pointing at something, I mean, you can do that, but it's pretty rare.
Yeah.
There's going to be a reason behind your purchase, to some extent, in my opinion.
Dustin looked up that spirit we were talking about that the Under Armour CEO did. It's called Sagamore.
Sagamore Spirit.
Yeah, I couldn't remember what it was.
Yeah.
We got it.
Well, I'll touch on the cigar here before we go further down the bourbon trail here, like that.
Yeah.
We're
Kentucky
smoking.
Bourbon Trail.
Okay.
You missed that part.
Yeah, I think they knew. I wasn't talking about Florida.
No.
CAO Brazilia is an older blend from CAOs before. The reason I picked a CAO tonight, though, is 2 weeks we're going to have, the plan is to have Rick Rodriguez on, who is the current master blender of CAO since...
Whoa, that's cool.
Yeah, it should be he's a great guy, very good episode. He, took over the blending of it since General Cigars bought and acquired CAO several years back from the family that owned it before. This was around before the acquisition and was actually one of my go-tos for years. I used to go into the tinderbox. I think I mentioned it before on the podcast that I used to go to the tinderbox and just buy 3 at a time. That was kind of like my everyday kind of smokes, and so I've always liked it. So it's funny that you say, Jake, that you don't think it pairs all that well, because I think I have this imprinted in my cigar DNA at this point that it goes well with most things. For
With
me,
anything?
because I smoked it with most things at one point in my life. So I think this actually pairs very well. It's a pretty strong cigar, Brazilian wrapper. That's why it has that name, Brazilia.
That's weird.
And it's got Nicaraguan tobacco, and I believe it's still made in Honduras, however. So, yeah. Oh, no, now it's made in Nicaragua. So originally it was made in Honduras, now it's made in Nicaragua. So it's made in Esteli. And like I said, I think it's got a little bit of spice to it. Nate says, do you think the cigar had changed from when it was still owned by is it Osgener? Osgener family. So CAO are initials, actually. Kano, Osgener. And then Tim was kind of running it for a while there. His son, who then sold it to General. Yeah, it is. It's one of those cigars that I don't think the blend changed, but they changed factories. They changed the volume of production. Much like people say with bourbons, if they get craft brews, same way. All these things, once they get snatched up by a big boy and the company made money by selling it, they get some hate. But I don't think the blend has changed, but the construction definitely has. It definitely had more of that boutique, a little bit softer, not as, I think they've gone back a little bit, but if you smoke, like for example, the 6x60, which is called the Amazon, this is called the Gol, G-A-O, or G-O-L, and it's more of a Robusto size, but like the 6x60, we have a lot of construction issues. I think they're doing the same blend, to answer your question, but I think that it is something that is being more mass produced, because this is, last I knew, the hottest seller of the CIO brand.
This is, the construction on this is a lot better, because when I first...
You smoked the big boy.
Yeah, when I first started smoking cigars, that's one of the recommendations that Steve had for me. And when I first started working at the Tinderbox, I grabbed one of the CAO Brazils, the 6x60, like what you said, and sure enough, the first time I cut it, it cracked. And not the whole thing, but the cap, and it just wasn't. It was good, but I've seen a lot of the 6x60s crack right at the cap.
It's kind of a more, I don't say brittle, but it's a hardy wrapper leaf, and I think that causes some of that. You know what I mean? So it's almost a little bit more constricting. So when you have that extra filler in there, you may have some of that where it's going to be pushing the limits, and instead of expanding a little bit, it'll crack.
Yeah,
because it's got a little bit of brittleness to it.
For sure.
But I do want to point out that Scott doesn't smoke, and so this is a good point to bring up.
Just gonna say that.
Go ahead.
No, it's.
Much like Dino when he was on a couple weeks ago, he said that he's had guests before that, don't drink, and it's the same thing with this. And I want to encourage anyone that wants to be either a caller, as far as, if we do the video chat, or they want to join us in the garage. If you don't drink, you don't smoke, one or the other or both, and you still want to be on the podcast, that's fine as long as you don't mind smoke, because we are going to be smoking in the garage.
Right.
But I will say that it's nice to have someone on that wants to be a part of this for really 2 out of the 3, and then possibly, learn something from the cigar side of it, really.
Exactly.
I mean, that's kind of the way the viewers are and the listeners are, is that not everyone smokes, not everyone drinks, and most people, if they're interested in something, they're interested in the topic that we're talking about, personalities that we have on here, the guests. So I want to encourage everyone, if you guys, again, talk about sharing this. I mean, that's really the price of admission here is sharing it, is all we ask. Just tell someone about it. If you have a bourbon drinker or a whiskey drinker, if you have a cigar smoker in your life, if you have a friend that doesn't do any of them, but you think they'd get along with us and wouldn't mind joining us in the garage to talk about life, then please share it. Just tell someone, text them, share whatever. It's actually kind of nice to see the growth of the show, much like your publication, as you see more people talking about it, and you've seen your Facebook page, Scott, grow already.
It's
what are you at now as far as
1,600
followers? It's amazing.
You
haven't even put out your first publication.
No, we haven't.
So you're creating that community, which is amazing.
Exactly, and that's kind of what we wanted to do. We wanted to create a community via social media that we could understand, and that we could get feedback from, and then create a publication, both print and online, to serve that community. So we know our audience knows us. We try to keep it light. We try and keep it, very diverse. You know, I have people that will go to a bar and they'll say, hey, they'll take a picture, want me to do a review for you, and they'll do a review and they'll send it to me and we'll put it out on social media.
That's neat.
And it's great. I mean, even since in the month since we did that soft rollout on Facebook, the friendships that I've forged with people, not just in central Ohio, but across Ohio and beyond Ohio.
Probably beyond, I was going to say.
Has just been fascinating. You know, I mentioned the Mattingly interview, which the story I think you'll really like. One thing that you're never going to see in Ohio Bourbon Times is a hatchet job.
Yeah.
You know, we are always going to strive to see the brightest spot of anything. We're not going to embellish, we're not going to overlook, but you're going to have an honest, positive outlook on whatever we're talking about.
I like that.
And I think that's something that you can only really get away with in print. You know, like these guys. You know, you don't see, you know, where when they were talking shit on their label, it just, people...
Back then.
And
yeah.
And I'd kind of like to see us back in it in a simpler time.
Yeah.
You know, like that.
Yeah.
You know, I want you, when you take a dump, I want you to leave your cell phone on the kitchen counter and take a copy of Ohio Bourbon Times.
There you
with
go.
Guys, making sure where we were taking the dump.
Yeah, definitely
Not
in
in
the
the
bathroom.
kitchen. Okay,
Not in the kitchen.
Just wanted to like...
Again,
you know,
frowned upon.
right.
And,
Yeah.
you know, that's...
Even in your own home, really.
Yeah,
Yeah, you don't want to
the
do that.
line is drawn just this side
Yeah,
of
you-
dumping
yeah.
in the kitchen.
Yeah, that's where food's made.
Yeah.
Now,
Not left.
I did want to ask this question,
Not
Scott.
left. Nice.
I did want to ask this question where, so why not smoking cigars? Like, I always like to ask that question. Is there like something behind that? Or
As a former cigarette smoker,
okay.
if I were to try a cigar now,
Yeah.
I would inhale it.
Okay.
And I would turn like colors that you have
It's a
never
lot.
seen before.
I hope you don't get bad experience from the smoke in the garage.
No, I'm actually enjoying the
Aromas?
Yeah, the smell. I mean, this reminds me, and I told my wife this as soon as I walked in. We had down where I grew up, we had a little place in downtown called the Herald Square Cigar Store.
Yeah.
Nice.
And they had guy's name was Herbie, and he ran the thing, you know, since God was a kid. You know, he was just a fixture in town.
Yeah.
And you walk in and that same aroma. Now in the back room, because I am from Steubenville, the back room was where they ran the numbers and had the poker games going on in the back. And that's actually where the smell was coming from. So it was, you know, the aroma of cigar smoke really takes me back to, you know, to my childhood, my younger days.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's timeless, really.
It is.
Yeah.
You know, and there's probably no stronger sense than smell to transport you back to a memory.
Right. That's exactly right.
And, you know, as soon as I walked into the garage, like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
You know, I'm in Herbie's place.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great.
He's inside.
Yeah, Herbie,
Yeah.
well, with the aid of a shovel, most likely. But once again, I digress.
I did want to shout out Eric Black. He hasn't been able to join us the last couple of weeks. He's been pretty busy, and he's here now, which we're glad happy to have him in the shop.
Long time listener.
Yeah, and he's always boisterous, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Yeah.
So
We've had people also, by the way, just, you know, if you guys are listening to the audio, if you're free on Wednesdays or you want to contribute to the conversation, we've had people so far, a lot of people from Ohio, but we had Jennifer from Texas on. We had Juan Lopez from Gurkha.
Juan was on?
Yeah, so he was in the shop yesterday and today, so we
no
hung
shit.
out with him a little bit. So he was on earlier. We got Nook, who's trying to get on next week, so we might actually have a surprise Nook appearance next week.
Awesome.
So he said he has big news.
Yeah, I tried to, I don't know if Juan saw he probably didn't see my video at all that I shared. but it was about Gurkha's $2,000 cigar.
Dude, yeah, I told him when he walked in, I was like, I'm tired of seeing your fucking face on all my cigar groups. It's like everyone's sharing this video of, because this, Lifestyles Rich and Famous type thing on, I think it was MSNBC actually did it, or broadcast it, but Juan's on there talking about Gurkha has a $2,000 cigar. And this is about that and the secret rolling room and everything else.
Yeah, but it's Juan that is.
Yeah, no, I told him I'm tired of seeing his face every day. And he's like, yeah, well, what do you mean, like the 3.3 million views on that thing? I was like, yeah, I know. I think I've watched it at least 1 million of those. Can't get away from him.
It's awesome.
No, Juan's awesome. So we appreciate him checking it out. He wanted to be on actually yesterday. He was in the shop and I was like, because he had to go and.
Yeah.
And he's like, are you doing your show tonight? Because we're in town. And I was like, no, I'm working all night. It's actually tomorrow. I was like, fuck, man, I wanted to get drunk with you guys in the garage. I was like, well, maybe next time.
I'd really like him to be here, though. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, he is a great personality. So
he's one of those guys that if you're not a Gurkha cigar smoker, he will make you want to smoke a Gurkha.
You'll be smoking a Gurkha by the end of the night. Yeah, for sure.
That's what happened to me. But so. Going on to our topic of the evening, what can bourbon do for you, or like what Scott said, and I hope I see a new part of his publication with this is Bourbon Tales,
Bourbon Tales, yeah.
And it's great because I don't think a lot of people understand that bourbon is so much more, whiskey is so much more than just a spirit. It really can, it's just a byproduct of great relationships and friendships that evolve from it. And you can meet a number of people through it, and it does a lot of great things in the world for people. It brings them together in certain ways that they'd never meet otherwise. And it's brought me to all of you, and it's brought this to come about, like the podcast in general, and there's a million different things that we can talk about tonight, and that's what we're about to get into. But I think in the midst of it, what I like about bourbon and the cigar part of it is that it takes us back to a simpler time. And we've said this before, where it takes time to enjoy these things that we're doing. And when you do that, it goes against the grain of what is actually happening in our society today, where, when you talk to someone, and they say they're good, what's the first thing that they say before that? Busy. Mm-hmm. I'm busy, but I'm good.
A lot of times, yeah.
And I think this is an anomaly, really, where it's taking us back. It's forcing us to enjoy it. It's forcing us to stop for a second and enjoy it with friends, family, and loved ones, which otherwise wouldn't happen. And I think that's really, really important to see, other than just people drinking.
Well, I think that's, you hit it right on the head. The same thing with cigars. I'm looking at even the Facebook feed right now. It's like we just had Richie Riot chime in from Florida. And he just had a kid this week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then he's a cigar guy. He works in the industry. PDR Cigars. He said he's going to be in a couple weeks, so maybe we could have him on. Awesome. But what does he say? Nate's on there saying, hey, congrats on the kid. So this is all like cigar, kind of the same thing with bourbon.
Right.
Like, it's like none of us would ever met if it weren't for some of these fields, these hobbies that are then lifestyles. And then, what does Richie say to me? I'm a wild turkey guy.
Yeah.
So it's like, again, it's like now you got something else to talk about.
Richie, you were my people.
Yeah.
I'm a wild turkey guy, too.
Let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
But and you hit the nail on the head. It is about, and I'm sure you've seen me use this saying before, and it's one of my favorite. Bourbon is nothing more than a currency of friendship.
Right.
It is something that friends do together.
Yeah.
It is something that we find in common. Some of my closest friends that I've met through bourbon, I never would have, if I'm going to be honest with myself, we would have fought either about politics, religion, sports, or something else, and I would not have gained the pleasure and honor of their friendship.
Right.
Were it not for this.
Right.
Because I would have found some way to disagree with them. They would have found some way to disagree with me. That's how our world works anymore, and it's sad.
Sure.
But bourbon has become the great equalizer. You've already had 3 pours together. You like each other. You've got a connection going. Before politics comes up. And when it does come up, you're more inclined to listen to your friend than judge your enemy.
Right.
Depends how much bourbon you've had. Sometimes.
Well, yeah, sometimes.
If it comes up too late in the night, you're like, we got to go.
Yeah, time to go.
We got to go.
When inhibitions are all
We were getting
completely
ready.
gone.
We were getting ready to close the shop
Yeah.
last night, and I was talking to this guy that's from Jersey, and he was just like hanging out. And it was 9 o'clock. We were closing up, and about 9:10, after I said everyone's got like 5 minutes, all of a sudden in the back, turned from that Michael Jordan LeBron conversation to now all of a sudden I started hearing Trump, and then I started hearing Biden, and I started hearing. I look at him, I'm like, this is how you know it's closing time and no one was arguing, but it was like it was like, you don't talk about religion, you don't talk about politics, typically in a cigar shop.
Right.
What do people always end up talking about at some point? Politics and religion. You're just like, all right, it is time to close. Everyone out.
I see more commonality with people now than I did prior to becoming involved in the bourbon community.
Okay.
And let's be honest, we have in the bourbon world, we have 2 vastly juxtaposed camps.
On what?
We have the way we act. We have a camp of remarkably charitable, giving, genuinely caring, salt of the earth human beings.
Right.
On this side.
Yeah.
On this side, we have a bunch of, forgive me, but entitled assholes chasing Blantons, chasing the truck, and bitching and moaning because they didn't get what they figured they needed.
Right.
That is a wide ass.
Sometimes
world.
you have some crossover. I'm gonna throw my 2 cents. Sometimes you have crossover. It's not full blown asshole.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like in a negative way. You're still an asshole, but then you do have that charitable side, the community side of it. But then you can't. You're also caught up in what you're saying on the other side of it. I'm not like defending anyone in particular. I'm just saying there are some people that they take the hobby and lifestyle so far, to your point, where it's like it's like the Black Friday shoppers that are fighting for that
TV.
fucking for that TV, and all of a sudden you end up like the person that is a suburban mom, dad, or something like that works in a cubicle or whatever, going to jail for the night because they got assault charges because it was Black Friday.
Right.
And they didn't want to lose out on the 10th TV that was on sale for an extra $50 off.
Right.
It's such a fucking good deal. And then they trample over someone on the way out.
But this is how our world, our bourbon world, our bourbon community has evolved.
Mm-hmm.
6 months ago, those were as recently as 6 months ago, those were your major camps.
Agreed.
However, and one of my stories for the first edition, I had to be careful with this because I didn't want to jeopardize anyone. But I actually interviewed liquor store employees.
Very cool.
And I asked them, I said, this will be totally anonymous. Nobody's going to know what your name is, where you work. They won't be able to figure it out. But I want you to give me your honest opinion of truck day with the bourbon guys.
Oh, God.
Well, that's what I thought. I said, this is going to be a total shit show. I was so pleasantly surprised.
Really?
There were a few instances, one of a guy that walks into a liquor store and says, I need Blantons. I know you got Blantons. I want to buy 2 of them. No, we don't have it. You have the Blantons back there. I know you do. You're hiding it from me. I've got 18 cases of Blantons at home, and I need 6 this week, and I need 2 more, and I'm getting them from you. And the guy's like, I'm don't fucking have your Blantons. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Dude, that's like addict style.
Yeah, that's, that is taking...
Jesus.
That's taking it to the next level. You've got other guys that actually get into a fisticuffs.
Yeah.
Good Lord, I like that.
Grabbing...
Keeping it old school.
Yeah, keep it old school. Grabbing shit off of a pallet.
Yeah.
And they're like, what the...
Yeah.
What? It's flipping booze.
Well, an old the liquor store by Chase or whatever in Westerville, that's the way they do it on Tuesdays.
What, fights? Cage fights?
No, but like they don't even bother like taking stuff off the pallets.
They just let you free.
They just open it.
Oh, sweet.
Like
It's like Black Friday every
honestly,
week.
Honestly, and it's kind of like what you just said, Scott. Like we have this thing now in Ohio where you're able to see who gets what.
Right, and there is...
I heard about that.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at it yet.
The state of Ohio, OHLQ, has a website that you can go to, and it'll tell you who got what. You put in...
You look at current inventory, if I'm not mistaken,
but
or
it's
something like that.
not real time.
No,
there's a bit of a lag there. It lags about 24 hours behind.
It's okay. I mean, we don't need to have a real-time ticker.
Yes, we do, Steve.
Fuck off.
Yes, we do.
No, that's bullshit.
You don't understand.
Steve,
Clearly.
I could not agree
trust me,
more.
I do understand.
Because sometimes, and I say this with all sincerity, sometimes the greatest gift in the bourbon world is not being able to find the bottle that you're looking for.
You said that before we started.
And it gives you the opportunity to, instead of getting that 300th bottle of Blanton's, or that 30th bottle of Old Weller Antique, to experience something else. I just discovered the Middle West as a result.
Yeah.
I love Middle West now.
Really?
A lot of their stuff, I just absolutely, and it's from right here in Columbus.
I was going to say, that's OYO, right?
Yeah.
That's the old OYO. That was confusing for a little while because they kind of did that under the radar, if I'm not mistaken.
For sure.
Yeah, people started seeing this pop up, like, what is this? And it's literally sitting next to another OYO bottle on the shelf because they hadn't gotten through all the other shit. They might have confused some of the liquor stores too. Like, hey, this is new, let's grab that. And I'll put it right next to OYO because they're both local. It's like,
same thing.
They're remarkably close to one another.
They're remarkably close.
Remarkably close.
Surprising.
So, I mean, that in and of itself, is a gift. I mean, there's a blessing and a curse to living in a controlled state, as Ohio is. The blessing is everything's the same price everywhere. Everything is reasonably priced, with a few exceptions that I really don't understand. The whole Calumet Farms thing blew my mind.
Higher priced here.
Yeah, man, it went up in the course of a month, went up $30 a bottle for the 12-year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, in neighboring states, it's still, the old price. But who would have thought in a million years that people would be traveling to Ohio to buy Old Weller Antique? Other states, it has gone up to $50 a bottle.
Yeah.
And you can still buy it for $29.
Yeah.
I think.
And that even went up a little bit.
Yeah, that went up.
Yeah, you're talking $4 or $5, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Even if that,
If
I did want to shout out James Ryan Miller just tuned in.
Hey, JRM.
Yeah, so it's great to hear from you. I know he's been wanting to hear from you, Scott. So
Can I actually, while we're on that?
Yeah.
We had Chris, who was from, hang on.
Michigan, Lansing.
Michigan. He kind of commented earlier when you were talking about some of this stuff. Bourbon was what broke the ice with me and my father-in-law when we first met. We sat down and had a drink and hit it off almost immediately. So again, there's that great equalizer.
Exactly.
You got Mark from New York back on here too. So
Mark.
we're at several states right now. It's amazing. He says he's raging a glass of Van Brunt Distillery Rye, made in Brooklyn, of course, New York. He's raising that to us, as he says.
Very nice. Cheers, Mark.
So thanks for everyone that's tuning in on Facebook Live again every 7 o'clock on Wednesday. We do that. So
you can try this blend too, Scott, when you get the chance. You don't got to go through that.
You're too eager, man.
No, I mean, it's just I'm excited.
All right.
I get excited.
It comes from a distillery called Sanders Lake. It's gorgeous. This distillery is right on the water.
This gave me a great idea.
I know. So they actually, it's
No,
every bottle has a little bit of.
But I want, before we get too far, there is one thing I do want to do, and it's a serious day in my family.
Yeah.
One of my uncles, the youngest of my uncles, went into hospice today for the final time. He's been fighting bone cancer for a few years now. And I was talking to my cousins, and I said, "Hey, tune in. We'll be on the podcast tonight.
Absolutely.
And I'll twist their arms. We'll drink a toast to my Uncle Jake.
Uncle Jake.
He's a great dude. Stubborn, tough as
Well, how many
nails.
times have you been in hospice?
Gosh, in and out several times.
That's stubborn right there.
He is.
Based on what you said, stubborn.
Yeah.
And you said earlier, like for his final time. I mean, not to make light of a situation,
Yeah.
but that's a stubborn person to keep going in and out of hospice. Good for him.
He's one of the toughest guys I've ever known. His sons, my cousins, Stacy and Jeff, are chips off the old block. But I want to raise a glass to my uncle tonight, if you guys don't mind.
Yeah.
Cheers to Uncle
Cheers.
Jake. Absolutely, guys in the garage. We had JR
Gentlemen.
say that as well. It's amazing.
Cheers.
Wish you and your family all the best.
Thank you.
That's always tough.
If we could ask our viewers to give happy thoughts and prayers,
Appreciate that.
that'd be great.
On that note,
So right now, as we always do, if you're familiar with it, we're saving it on our audio portion of the podcast right now.
and off the audio, I mean, thank you for sharing that, guys. If you're listening on the Facebook Live right now or on YouTube, I mean, that's huge to do. And that, again, I think it brings to light the whole topic of the fact that you said that it's something that brings people together and something that's again a great equalizer.
It is.
It's something that you can't cheers. I mean, just anything. It's something that you can cheers a glass to something that's very fun and celebratory, and you can also, I mean, if you're celebrating someone's life as well.
Yeah.
So
And
both sides of it.
I tried to. I asked my cousin before I came. I said, "Man, because my uncle's always been a beer drinker. Always been a beer drinker." And I asked him. I said, what has he mostly drank?"
Yeah.
He said, "Of late, it's been Natty Light." I said, "Ooh."
What college does he go to?
Yeah. So I actually stopped at a couple of places. I was going to bring a sixer of Natty Light for Uncle Jake.
This ain't
tonight,
Rocky Mountain
but,
State, Scott.
But
We would have had a
I don't know if
hangover.
it was fortunately or unfortunately I couldn't track any down. So
Check the fridge for later here. Now you ready to roll, hey boys?
So, what I love about this whole topic is not just the bourbon itself, but one story that comes to my mind is, and it just happened recently, and I told Steve about this, was the basic point about this, and I'll tell the story after, is that with bourbon and cigars, it has a nostalgia to it. And I think it puts people in a different mindset, like I said earlier, and like we keep saying, is it brings people together in an interesting way. And it doesn't really matter who you are, whether you are a beer drinker, whether you are a wine drinker, or whatever. There's a nostalgia point to it, and there's my equation is pour a glass, light up, and then we'll figure this out together. And that's what we've created through Bourbon and BS podcast. And what I think of, and that's literally life's equation for us, is that you pour another glass, you light up another cigar, and it literally creates conversation. There's no other point other than to talk.
right.
And I think that people really, really need that. So the story that I'm going to discuss just happened a couple weeks ago with a good friend of mine that I went to the old gym that I used to go to. His name is Brian, and he had a housewarming party. We were closing up at the shop on late on a Saturday night, and I went over there, and I took a few cigars, and I didn't really know who all was going to be over there, and I didn't know anyone else that was there besides Brian that owned the house, and his wife. And so we go over there, and I'm over there for probably an hour or so. It's midnight by that time, and Brian all of a sudden just leaves. Like, he gets up, he's done. I know he's been drinking, so he just goes up and doesn't say a word. Just kind of that classic situation where your buddy gets up and leaves, and he just goes upstairs and passes out. He's fine. His wife goes upstairs.
It's like an Irish goodbye, but
in his own house. So I'm downstairs with his college football players that obviously I got along with because I played college ball, and we're discussing some things, and we're playing cards and stuff like that. And it was funny because obviously, I was the only one drinking whiskey. Normally when I'm in a younger setting, I'm the only one there that's drinking whiskey and smoking cigars. But obviously I wasn't smoking a cigar inside. And so we got done and we're talking about things, and I'm sitting there with his two good friends, and well, all of a sudden, like, I think I'm about to go, and so I cut a cigar, and I'm kind of, I didn't light it, but I'm like chewing on it, getting the flavor out of it, because I like doing that. And so one of his friends was like, do you have another one? A cigar and whiskey and stuff like that. And I had a couple. I always have 2 bottles on me. Anyone that knows me anymore, I normally have
for medicinal purposes.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
And I normally have 2 bottles on me anywhere. And so we went outside and we poured, our glasses. And this is what I like about it. I'm not generous because it's something that I should do. It's because I want people to enjoy it as well. You know what I mean? And so we light up our cigars and we pour a couple glasses. Well, before I know it, it's 5 o'clock in the morning.
A.M.
A.M.
Yeah. This is an evening event.
On meridian.
Yeah. There you go.
Bingo.
And these are
late or early, depending on how you look at it. Honestly, I mean, it could have been an early night.
Yeah, you were early for tomorrow.
It's late for me.
Right.
So, but obviously we're well into Sunday morning, and these are guys that I didn't know, Jack from Jill a few hours ago. And just the conversations that I had, just the time that we spent together, it's just, I think things like that happen more often than not, and I think it should be addressed when we're talking about whiskey, because there's nothing like it.
Right.
In today's world, I don't think.
I think you're right. And a lot of it, I think, has to do with the actual physical properties of the spirit.
Yeah.
I mean, if you sit around and drink beer, every 5 minutes you're up taking a piss. So somebody is always pissing.
Interesting.
So
Don't say it too often, or I'm gonna have to get up.
see, now here we are.
Just saying.
Break the seal and it's over with.
Don't go chasing waterfalls, Steve.
That's good advice for life.
So that being said, I mean, it takes a little bit, a little bit of time to go through a pour. Back where I come from, it's a shot and a beer. So it took me some getting used to actually sit.
Where's the scotch?
Yeah, 1 bourbon, 1 scotch, 1 beer. So I think the actual physical properties and physical process of enjoying a pour of bourbon is conducive to those conversations. It's conducive to developing and fostering and enhancing those relationships. Because what the hell else are you going to do while you're sitting drinking bourbon?
And I think it's sometimes mistaken for a very meticulous way, or very not, what's the word I'm looking for? Not pretentious way of just acting. I think sometimes I think drinking whiskey and smoking cigars is looked at it that way, that for people that don't do it.
Well, because of the some people that do it actually too, though. I mean, it's a status thing, and sometimes and I think what we're referring to, that we're talking about, is not that. I mean, it's something that this is more that even if it does start off that way, like you're trying to keep up with the Joneses by ordering the more expensive whiskey or smoking the more expensive cigar, when it comes down to it, if you actually sit there and pour the glass that you're talking about, where it's it's time consuming in a good way, Same thing with the cigar. It's not like a cigarette, you know, like you mentioned, Scott, that you were a cigarette smoker. And, you know, there are plenty of people that, you know, at work, if you will, that they have their smoke break friends, you know, you're at a bar, you're drinking, and you go outside and you smoke a cigarette, and you all of a sudden you have those quick 4-minute conversations, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
But when you do it with a cigar, you do it with a glass of whiskey, it's drawn out. So it doesn't matter if you are doing it in that pretentious way, because you're right. From the outside looking in, some people do look at those things because they're luxury items.
Right.
Like, I mean, think about it. I mean, look at the $50 for, if you're on video for this, it's smaller than the microphone that we're talking into. And that's a lot of money. Or if you go to a bar and you have a bottle that's a $50 bottle, even for a fifth, that's usually like a $15 pour.
Right.
For one drink. That's a lot of money. Cigars the same way. Average price probably, you know, $9-10 for an hour or so of enjoyment. I mean, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it's, again, I mean, you can get a lot out of it. You know, what can bourbon do for you? I gotta say too, it's something that you can do on your own at times as well.
Yeah.
It's a reflection thing sometimes.
It is.
Because for the same point, the time.
Yes.
The time. You know, you're not just cracking a beer. Nothing against beer drinking. I mean, I like a good beer, but it's like, it's the fact that a beer, like to your point, getting up and peeing, but also you're drinking a lot more liquid and typically faster, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Typically. And so then you have to get up and get another one. Crack it.
There's a lot more nutrients in this too, Steve, so it...
A lot of grains.
I haven't read the
Synthesizes well.
nutrition label on it.
Keto friendly.
Is
So,
it?
I'm,
Who knows?
I'm going with that.
Yeah.
What about gluten? Is it gluten free?
Mr. Atkins liked it, I think, too.
I asked for mine with extra gluten. Like the gluten you take out of the other people's shit, just put it in mine.
And more corn.
Yeah,
Yeah,
extra
right.
corn.
More syrup. More corn syrup.
So that is, you know, that's kind of where I land on it. And even to speak, Steve, to your thing about being pretentious. And yeah, there's a lot of pretense that can go around. You know, people want to, how do we say it, measure their whiskey dicks. You know,
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
this is what I have. This is what you don't. There was a time that I was impressed by that. You know, there may have even been a time that I may have wanted to strive toward that.
Yeah.
But
I think a lot of people do.
But I mean, if I'm going to be completely honest with you, I've got a grand total of 4 bottles sitting in my closet right now at home.
That's it?
That's it. I've become not a collector by any stretch of the imagination. I've become a consumer.
Yeah.
I've become.
I'm with you on that.
And I enjoy it. I enjoy it more by not feeling that I have to chase the next greatest thing coming around the pike.
Yeah, and I think with most people that that isn't like you, Scott, where you're actually going against just reviewing stuff. You're talking about the stories in your publication. I think there's a lot of reviews out there where people that dive into this arena, that they want to do something within this because that's what they're passionate about. The first thing that they go to is either being a critic or reviewing it, right? So for that to be relevant, they're always chasing the latest thing.
Right.
And I think most of us, obviously it's one of those, it's much like food for me, where I'm a big food guy. I love trying different foods and I love flavors, so I think that's what's drawn me to bourbon. And then obviously the moral of the story is that it's drawn me to you know, Steve, Scott, Dustin,
Everyone out there.
Everyone out there.
Yeah.
But more or less, it's something that has drawn me to kind of be more passionate about something that I wasn't really used to, and that I didn't know, and it's created a new passion for me. And I think sometimes, and I dove into it too with like our old groups that we were a part of, and I wanted to be. I didn't have the income stream that some of the guys that we know to do what they do. Sure. And obviously I envied that because I just wanted to try it. It wasn't that I wanted to have the bottle, I just wanted to experience it, right? because, like I say, when I get nerdy about the flavors and the noses and stuff, on here, it brings back a memory, like what we said about smell. Mm-hmm. These things, the whiskey brings back interesting memories just based on flavors. And I think that that should be announced, where it should be granted a presence in what we're talking about. And it's, I don't know, it's really, I just find whiskey and bourbon fascinating.
I think you can do a bottle side of it, where it's like you had a unique bottle, or it doesn't even have to be unique, right? It's just a bottle that you don't maybe drink all the time.
Right.
But it's much like cigars, we get that a lot too, where, you hear a story where I was on this vacation and I was smoking this cigar, and it was, with my dad, or it was with my wife, or it was with my, whatever it is, there's a story involved. So every time you smoke, every time you crack a bottle, we have the Old Forester 1920, but even just take it down to a lesser dollar amount, right? So just a bottle of Old Forester. Like if you had an experience with a bottle of Old Forester on the table, and a conversation, and a night, and a fire, or a moonlight, or a sunset, or you're celebrating a kid or an accomplishment or whatever it is, every time you crack that bottle of Old Forester, there's that experience, to Scott, your publication, where it's like, it's what was the currency?
It's bourbon is nothing more than the currency of friendship.
Yeah. So I mean, whatever it is, friendship, and that can be family, it can be anything else, but it's like those memories you're talking about, Jay.
Yeah.
When you combine all that together, I think it doesn't matter what it is. And it doesn't even have to be the same bottle sometimes for some people. It's just literally having a glass of whiskey with someone that creates that facilitates that memory that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Through smell, through taste, through the action of lifting the glass, cheersing, all that.
And that's what we want to concentrate on, is the stories that come out of it.
I think that's what we all should concentrate on.
Because isn't that at the end? I mean, let's break this down for a second.
Let's get after it here.
Let's get on it. Stories are so important to the human race.
Yeah.
Back to the beginning of time, when the cavemen were roaming the earth, stories were so important that we had to create language for the sole purpose of telling them.
Right.
Think about that. That is how ingrained our stories are into who we are. And the stories that come alongside of, or because of, or in conjunction with the bourbon that you bought, that you drank, that you shared with friends, that you shared with a stranger.
Right.
I was doing a bar review last week, and a fella came up, and I was having a sip of, in fact, it was the Midwestern. And guy sat down, and he said, I want, asked the bartender, what's a good bourbon that you have?
Yeah.
So naturally, I'm like a German Shepherd that heard sound
Exactly.
for the first time. My ears tweaking around. I said, try this. And he had a sip of mine. He says, damn, that's really good. What is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I told him about it, made right here in Columbus. He was from up around Cleveland area. He said, give me one of those. And he had it, and we sat and we talked.
Yeah.
Now, this is a guy that, were it not for that, we could not be more opposite in so many ways.
Right.
But we connected on that one common thing, which was the bourbon.
Exactly.
Right.
And we are now, we're friends.
Are you
we're
Facebook
buddies.
friends?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
There you go.
official. It's Facebook official.
That's
dog.
sweet.
What? No, I love that, and I think, one story that comes to mind for me is that with even my mom, like, she's not a big whiskey drinker, and to Steve's point, talking about how it doesn't even have to be the same bottle, but just the action itself it brings back a memory. And one memory that sticks out to me, just even not so long ago, was when I brought, I got a bottle of Maker's Mark. It was like the number 6 store pick that Ed Blade did with Cork and Bottle, and down in Kentucky. And so, like I said, she's not a big whiskey drinker, but we were sitting, Alicia and I were at my parents' house, and we got done washing my car and doing some yard work for my parents and stuff like that. And we went out and we had a fire and everything like that. And I brought that because I wanted them to try it. Well, come to find out that it's 110 proof, and my mom didn't hate it. Like, she actually loved it. Because actually most whiskeys, she just, she's classic. She takes a sip and just her face cringes, And but she actually loved it. So now I make sure that I at least have one Maker Mark pick or cask strength that is in my
rotation.
Yeah, in my collection. That if she wants to try it.
Has she tried Maker's Mark?
Yeah.
46.
Yeah.
Like all those? Doesn't like this.
She doesn't like those.
Okay.
She likes. Yeah. That's what makes me interested about it, is that she likes the cask strength picks. She's had 3 different ones, and she likes each one of them.
Yeah.
In different ways. And it's funny because I'll give her a pour of something that's at 90 proof, and she still cringes like it's too hot.
Yeah.
So it's like we keep saying, is that it doesn't matter really what it is. It's the action behind it and the relationship. Even if it is with a loved one that you're already close with, it can bring you closer in a different way.
Yeah, I mean, and it's the action, it's the liquid, but it's the spirit of it. It's what's behind it. It's what motivates you to do it. I'm a firm believer that no bottle is worth having if you're not able to share it.
Right.
If you're not able to either crack it open, give it away to somebody, if to raise money for a good cause and a charity.
Yeah.
That, I think, is the true value of our greater bourbon community.
Yeah.
I mean, I've personally seen tens of thousands of dollars raised charitably,
right,
for beautiful causes. It's a way to belong. It's a way to help. It's a way to send support that isn't typically on the plate.
Right.
Well, again, there's value there, right? So, I mean, you can raise money with some of these things.
Oh, sure.
For good causes.
And it's that's my favorite part of it.
Yeah.
Is being able to be peripherally involved with helping a cause that may seem helpless.
Yeah.
Even if it's selfish to make me feel better.
Right.
About thinking that I did something.
It's not selfish, though. I think that's something that, if you don't enjoy doing good things for other people, if that makes you feel good, that's not selfish. Yeah. Honestly, I think that there are a lot of people that do think that way. They almost feel like guilty that, I give to charity, or I put community service hours in there, that, I want to do all this stuff, and because it makes you feel good, like, that's fantastic. It should make you feel good.
Yeah.
And
as opposed to not doing it or sitting on your couch and doing it. So, I mean, I think that's a good thing. I mean, everyone wins when you do that, hopefully.
And hopefully so.
Yeah.
Hopefully so. And the bourbon community as a whole is just off the hook, awash with those things. I mean, you get on any of these, national sites, even, within the state, there's always somebody, raising money for something. And that, in creating OBT, a charitable aspect of it was, was very, very important to me.
Yeah.
One of the first things that we did, I mean, I think we were only a couple of weeks old. I put out there, looking for advertisers.
Right.
And there's a fellow right over in Clintonville, right here in central Ohio, makes the most beautiful, absolutely stunning, breathtaking, custom bottle display cases that you've ever seen. He'll get a bourbon barrel, wine barrel if you want a wine barrel.
Is that Columbus Bourbon Company?
No, this is actually Bourbon Barrel Johnny in Clintonville.
Very cool.
fantastic guy. He's actually a professor of veterinary medicine at Ohio State, at the
I love
Ohio
it.
State University.
Still finds time to do this.
This is his passion. So he approached, he reached out and he says, "Hey man, I'm selling these things on Etsy. It's cost me, $250 to mail them across the country.
Yeah.
It's, I think I might benefit from advertising."
Nice.
So we sat down and I looked him up and I was like, "Holy shit, these things are gorgeous."
Mm-hmm.
So I reached back out to him. I said, "Dude, instead of actually paying for an advertisement, why don't we work something out here? Why don't you do one of these? There's a local guy in the bourbon community he's got a GoFundMe going on. He needs some help. Why don't we donate all of the proceeds? Won't pass through me. I'm not looking for a tax deduction.
Yeah.
It ain't going to pass through you. You ain't getting a tax deduction. Let's just do something good." So it was a wild turkey barrel, and that was the time that Eddie Russell was coming through doing barrel selections. Don't tell my wife, I threw this damn barrel in the back of our brand new car, and I drove it across town, and Eddie Russell actually autographed the top of this barrel.
That was right before the tasting, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that we went to.
Yes. So now this, John is creating that barrel. He finished the barrel, and he's creating this, and we auctioned it off.
Really?
And we raised $600-800.
How'd you
whatever.
auction it off?
Actually, it wasn't on auction. It was a raffle.
Okay.
So all we did, we put it out there. Hey, this is the guy. Don't send me the money. Don't send anybody the money. This is the GoFundMe page.
Yeah.
Do a snapshot, screen capture of your donation to the GoFundMe page.
Yeah.
And $5 a spot. How many you want?
That's very cool.
And is a local guy, Terry Grog, that wound up winning it.
Yeah.
And it's a tremendous piece of art that did good.
Right.
Simultaneous to the rollout, we're also going to be doing a 501c3. Funded by a portion of all ad sales, all subscription sales, as well as special events that we're able to do. That will 100% go into a 501c3.
Nice.
And try to use that money. I mean, don't get me wrong. OBT is, from my lips to God's ears, a for-profit company.
Yeah.
But why have if you cannot share? My thing that I have in mind, nothing would give me greater pleasure than to go, Christmas time and sit in a security office in front of a monitor at a Walmart and just randomly pay off layaways.
That'd be really cool.
When people come in and just do it quietly, do it silently, nobody knows nothing, in and out like the wind. And the reason I bring that up is simply because that is what the greater bourbon community has taught me. That's what it's inspired me to do.
Yeah.
To see the generosity that so many others, have given above and beyond, maybe even above and beyond what they could have or should have.
Yeah.
But to make our world a little bit of a better place with that bourbon somehow being the common denominator, that is what inspired me to do it. Not because, I'm a good guy or anything like that. It's
right.
just, that is what it taught me.
100% agree, you're not a good guy.
Yeah, I'm a dick.
No,
ask my wife, she'll tell you.
All right, well, you didn't want us to tell the story earlier about putting in a new car, and now you're telling us to ask your wife.
Yeah,
Is she
okay.
tuning in tonight?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Shit. You didn't think about that when you told the story about
Damn
putting
it.
a barrel in your brand new car.
I wrapped it up in blankets.
The car or the barrel?
Well, the barrel.
All right.
Yeah, it would have been difficult to see otherwise.
Perfect. I like that though. I mean, you're right. I mean, I think I know we've talked about this before. Is that whiskey? Like groups like this or just even the common bond of bourbons, especially now because of how hot they are, as far as
crazy.
Everyone's trying them. Cigars the same way. I've talked about this before. I've talked about it for years actually. Is that the nice thing about the community in the cigar world, and the nice thing about the community that's really developing, in my opinion, with the bourbon side of it, the whiskey side of it, is that it's as you get older, and Jake's heard me say this so many times. Your friends growing up because you grew up in the same neighborhood, so it's proximity. Then you go to the same high school, then you go to the same college, you have college friends, right? You graduate from college or graduate from high school or whatever your life, you go to work. So no matter what the steps are, if you don't go to college, at some point you end up in the real world, quote, end quote. And it's something that you lose that proximity because as you get older, you might meet some of your neighbors, whether you're in apartments, you own a house, whatever it is, but you may or may not get along. The only common bond there is the fact that you live in the same neighborhood or the same complex, right?
Yeah.
But more often than not these days, you don't have a relationship with your neighbors or people in the community you're living in, right? Because unless you strike up a conversation to let alone have common hobbies. But, if your neighbor also drinks bourbon or smokes cigars, you guys are in trouble because now all of a sudden you're going to be in trouble because you're drinking bourbon every night or you're smoking cigars every night. But it's great, right? But it's those, you played the same sports growing up. You have that friendship, right? You have that common ground. And as you get older, you move away. You don't even have the same sports teams or the same, city or town identity. You talk about Steubenville, unless you talk about like you and Dino had that common, idea of the fact you're both from the same area.
Yeah.
So it's like now, oh, we can be friends because we're from this smaller
right.
town, right?
And let's drink.
And now, now we find out that you both drink bourbon. But the nice thing about the bourbon side of it, the cigar side of it, is the fact that it is exactly what happened at that bar with you when you started talking to that individual because someone said something bourbon. Now all of a sudden you have this icebreaker, like the gentleman said on here earlier about with the father-in-law.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like you don't know what to talk about. You might be nervous, and all of a sudden you notice he's got the 4 bottles like you have.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of sitting down, and you're like, oh, you like bourbons? Oh yeah, I actually do. Yeah. Got a good selection there. You start talking about that, and all of a sudden you're talking about anything other than the fact that you're dating the daughter.
Yeah. Right.
Anything else. You're just a guy that
win.
happens to be in his house, and you realize that there's bourbon over there, and
Yeah.
we're good.
And more often times than not, you're not even paying attention to his daughter. You're
Right.
talking
Well,
about
that
the
point,
bourbon.
Yeah.
Which helps that even further,
Right.
because now it's
It makes you think it was the dad's plan all along.
exactly.
Yeah.
And if you're good, that'll be it.
Distraction.
But cigars the
See,
same
I've got
way.
a 13-year-old daughter at home, soon to be 13. So
Hide the bourbon.
Yeah, hide the bourbon.
No.
You don't want to like him at all.
No.
So the
I'm
same
look
thing.
mean. I'm practicing my mean face.
Yeah. Cleaning your guns.
Yeah.
I think with the cigars, it's the same way. I mean, we talk about that. We have talked about that. I think bourbon's the same way. Is that if you need help, for example, you know what I mean, with a charity, with Kind Act. If you need help, I always use it as if you need someone to help you move furniture, who you calling, because your growing up friends are gone. Your college friends aren't anywhere close, and your work friends aren't going to help you out because they're work friends.
Right.
But when you have a new community with a common hobby or common interest, that is that part where it really gets the relationships going.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you actually, as an adult, have these honest friendships, these honest relationships of common interest that then all of a sudden can expand to more than just, drinking bourbon or smoking a cigar. You're actually having those conversations that we talked about earlier. You're having those experiences, those Whiskey Wednesday nights or whatever it might be. You know what I mean? So I think there's a lot that is not said all the time about this. When Jake, I feel like, alludes to oftentimes that there's a negative connotation sometimes to drinking. I think you alluded to that a lot, and I think this is what the conversation tonight is about. Is it's not just about drinking alcohol. It's not just about smoking tobacco. It's not just about these sinful activities that are just killing people left and right, and just like it's the worst thing to happen to people and their families and all that stuff. There are bad things.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and
it's typically not because of it, but those might be the tools that lead down, you know, that give that the I guess the fire some gasoline, if you will. But more importantly, I think it's something that there is that common bond between people that they can expand relationships on. That otherwise, I mean, I know a lot of people that of all ages as adults that don't have close friends.
Sure. Yeah.
That really have neighbors that they talk to occasionally, but beyond their family unit, or if you have kids that now all of a sudden you're going to their soccer games or their school functions, there's no real deepness to any relationship in people's lives where things like bourbon and cigars, things like that are common hobbies, will actually be very fruitful in life, just way beyond the actual intro of that. But that's, again, to that side, it's the positivity that leads from it.
I mean, perfect example. You know, if were it not for the bourbon, you know, meeting you through the bourbon, I'd be sitting in a stranger's garage right now talking to myself because I'd have never met you people.
Right.
I'd have still found my way here because you got bourbon. But once again...
But we've met before, so not complete strangers.
Not complete. But you're like, what the fuck are you doing in my house?
I smelled it.
Yeah.
You were driving down Sunbury Road.
It was like, Herbie?
Where?
No, I'm so glad
I'm going to try this.
I'm glad.
Sanders Lake. It's a newer distillery.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah, it's not even... Don't talk about it too much. It's not even licensed right now.
It's a family recipe, though.
Yeah. But
we're talking about how good the story was.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm trying to kickstart it for you.
Yeah, it's really the story of Norris Lake and how that was brought up, and Dustin alluded to that earlier on the live feed. But no,
I feel like we can come up with a commercial right now.
Oh, for sure.
Go ahead.
Let's do a commercial.
No, I'm so happy that Steve brought that main point up about how it's not just about the spirit. It's really like it's the byproduct of getting together and allowing yourselves to be open, and it's just really astounding to me where, and I do allude to a lot about how there's the negative connotation bugs me a lot, especially at my age, where a lot of guys and girls are, you know, drinking to get drunk, and they're either younger than me, a little younger, that are drinking in college and they're hammering beers and stuff like that, taking shots, and I'm all for like having fun in college and doing all that stuff, and that's fine. Like I feel like people need to get it out of their system to an extent, but I think when you're 24, 25, even at my age, when I was 21 and I was excited about whiskey and bourbon and going down to the bourbon trail for my 21st birthday, not going out to a bar and getting hammered with my friends, I went down with my dad. And it was just me and him for 3 days. And in creating that bond that I didn't necessarily think I had when I was in my younger years. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It was just the way
it's reality.
It was the reality of it. And so when we did that, my dad and I had never done anything like that before where it was just him and I. And so for 3 days, when you're just sampling whiskey and being together and talking about stories and talking about, oh, did you like that? Or like, what? I thought that was okay, but you really liked that, so that's interesting because I didn't think that was so good. Or, you know, just stuff like that. It creates
it's conversation.
Yes, and it creates a conversation and creates a different dynamic between you and your loved one that you may have never created or had if it wasn't for the bourbon, if it wasn't for the whiskey. Now, fast forward a couple years, like I'm completely engulfed in it, and one day I want to own my own distillery.
Yeah, it's evolved for you, and it continues to evolve. And
I'm sure that my dad, if he didn't know that was going to happen at all, but he had heard about it and wanted to do it. And my main story about it is that when I was going through high school and college, my dad's favorite drink was Jim Beam Black 8-year-old, which was double aged, is what they called it at the time, and ginger ale. And so when Phil and I and Che went out to Indiana and we found an old bottle that is now discontinued of the 8-year double aged Jim Beam, like we got all 3 of them.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And I gave my dad that. I didn't drink it. I gave him that bottle because I know that it's a story behind it.
Right.
It's the relationship behind just that in itself, and the story behind it, and the passion behind it, and the memories is unmatched.
Has he drank it or cracked it?
I don't think so.
And that's something you guys can actually do together.
Yeah, and that's what I told him.
And I almost think that he probably would, knowing your dad.
Yeah, and that's what I told him. I didn't, even though that it is great stuff, I wanted him to have that.
Sure.
And to
it's
some
a part of his story.
Yeah, and to some people, it was like a $20 bottle.
Mm-hmm.
But the story behind it, the richness and the purity of the relationship and the camaraderie between me and my dad, between just one bottle. You can't make that shit up. I mean,
yeah.
And it's funny the way that I speak about it now, hearing it over, as it's coming out of my mouth, it's very, very pure and raw, and something that, like I keep saying, is unmatched. I had football, I had sports, I had school, but it wasn't like this over one common entity that can bring a father and son together.
That's a great story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That is what I love to hear. That's what I love writing about.
Yeah.
The quick story. One of the feature interviews that we're going to be doing in the coming months is with Trey Zeller from Jefferson's Bourbon.
Oh wow. Very cool.
Well, and there's a reason. As I was getting into bourbon, and this has been a few years back, I'm a huge Revolutionary War era history buff.
Really?
I love that shit. Absolutely love that shit.
Love that shit.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, bourbon is what I need to try now. So what am I going to try? And I'm looking on the shelves, like, wow, Thomas Jefferson. I didn't know he made bourbon. Well, turns out he didn't. But,
exactly.
How long ago was this?
This was honestly not as long ago as you may think. Maybe 10 years ago, 12 years ago.
That's
right in the midst of the bourbon boom, really.
Well,
I think it's at the beginning.
It was pre-bourbon boom.
Jefferson's was still not popular.
Jefferson started in 1997 when they could not give bourbon barrels away.
Right.
They were buying full bottles of bourbon from distilleries, that were selling them to recoup the cost of the barrel.
Wow. Well, yeah, I mean,
they were getting them for $50 a barrel.
Late 90s, 2000s, bourbon wasn't.
It was dead.
Popular. Vodka was getting huge.
Yeah, vodka was nuts.
I mean, that was all the flavors you're talking about.
Yeah.
That was the college campuses. That was
Cigar,
they had a resurgence. I don't want to say bourbon. Besides, like the Bean Jack and all these whiskeys.
Well, that's
right?
why they all
It's
had
the same things as like the 60s.
Yeah, the fancy decanters. Because that's the only way we can sell this shit is put it in something different.
But they were pitching like the old school then.
Right.
That's what they were trying to really push. But again, it was, I mentioned the 60s, but we're talking, I'm sorry to like interject, but it's like the old fashions, the Manhattans. They were trying to like come up with this because they were coming on the back end of when we were at Four Roses, where they were doing like the lighter whiskeys, trying to compete. Now it's like coming back to whiskey, but they were still trying to dig their way out behind the fucking flavored, whipped cream vodkas, the all the Red Bull and vodkas.
Yeah.
Were so huge.
Jägermeister.
Yeah, all that shit. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Whoa.
So Jefferson's.
So so that was my first entry into bourbon, and I drank it and I said, "Shit, that's not too bad." I've been drinking for a year or two. I'm old enough to be your older brother. We'll leave it at that.
That's right. For me.
What's so funny?
Scott, how old are you?
I'll be 53 here in a week.
There you go.
Very good.
I'm so old that the old-fashioned when I was young was called that new drink. That's how fucking old I am.
That's not true.
But I digress.
Fuck that.
I digress once again. So
how was Prohibition? I used that with Dino. I used that with Dino also. That's all right. It's just fun to say.
It was dry.
It was dry. That's good. I like that too.
So it was a huge moment for me.
That was a good one.
That's good.
It was good. It was a huge moment for me a couple of weeks ago. I got a hold of Jefferson's, and I told him I wanted to do a story on it. He said, "Well, how do you want to do this? You want to do it on the phone? You want to come down?" I said, "I prefer to come down, but whatever. Which trade's available?" Well, he's traveling the next couple of weeks. I've been a Jefferson's ambassador from day one.
Wow.
And they said, let me see if I can set something up. So they called me back and they said, he's available, or better, actually what it was, they sent me an email, and they brought him in on the email, and he's like, "Hey, thanks for being an ambassador, yada, yada, yada. I hear what you want to do. I can talk tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
I'll be traveling if that's okay." It's like, cool, that's fine. So I call him up. It's his cell phone. He's like, "Scott?" It's like he wasn't expecting another call from Ohio on his cell number at 1 o'clock on a Friday.
Still kind of cool though.
Master of deduction here. So I'm like, "Trey?" He says, "Yeah, how you doing, man?" We talked for an hour and a half.
That's amazing. That's great.
As he is in his car, driving with his entire family in the car on their way to spring break in Florida.
Jesus. Always working.
Always working. And the guy was so gracious. And I'm like, he's telling me these stories, and my favorite part, this goes back to the dry times of the bourbon world. When he wanted to start a bourbon brand in 1997, they were like, "You're fucking crazy. Why do you want to do that? Bourbon is dead. Vodka, do something else. Anything else, not bourbon. You're nuts. Bourbon's dead." And I said, "Kind of like print media, huh?" He says, "Yep."
Wow.
Just like newspapers. So, you know what? He has found a remarkable success.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Climbing into and resurrecting.
Against the odds.
Against the odds.
Yeah, I like that.
Well, and unbeknownst to him, he got in it right at the just best time that you can. Oh my gosh, yeah.
And I'm hopeful that same fortune might befall.
Speaking of which, when is that story? Is that the first publication or is that the second?
That's probably going to be in the second.
Yeah.
I definitely want to give them front page availability.
As you should. It's cool. It sounds like a cool story because I'd love to hear. There's probably dozens, if not 100 people that probably try to do it around the same time, thinking they could do it.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
yeah.
just like anything else. They're like, "Oh, this is the time to get in." Like the stock market. You know what I mean? But you just picked the wrong one, or you did it the wrong way. You got out too early. He
and his dad, together, which I just absolutely love that he and his dad did this together.
Yeah.
And they've created an iconic brand. I mean, some of their bottles, secondary wise, over $1,000. You know.
Why did they pick Jefferson, or do we have to actually get the publication?
You got to read the story for that.
Fucking gave me
I
that.
am a prick.
I should just be like, why Jefferson?
Yeah.
Come on, Scott.
Lineage?
No lineage.
All right, that's good. All right.
No lineage.
All right. You give me something. You gave me something.
Yeah,
I thought it was like, yeah, they're great. Knew him.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Met him one time.
You know what's
He
interesting?
was their president. You know?
All right. That's all right.
You know what's interesting though? Wasn't our first bottle Chef's?
It was actually. I
Our
got
very
Chef's
first
got
bottle of the podcast was Chef's collaboration.
So yeah, episode 1 was like a test. When we talked about it, we weren't going to actually air it. It's before we did Facebook Live or any of that stuff. We sat around the garage in the old place, and I wanted to get something that was different. And I had never actually heard of it, but it was Chef's collaboration.
Yeah.
The bourbon and rye, and God, that was fucking good.
Yeah. It was.
I think it still is good. I haven't had a bottle since. I don't think
No.
Now, one other story that I'm super excited about.
that you won't really tell us everything.
Well, but I don't know everything yet. I am a dick. I warned you all ahead of time. I'm a bit of a dick.
I love it. Good company.
Tom's Foolery. Have you-
Yeah, I haven't had it.
Oh,
Is it good?
you know what? Their bottled in bond is off the hook good.
Is that what's available?
Is that the black wax?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't think I've seen that one.
I've seen it once.
I've seen Tom's Foolery.
It
And
is
I-
an Ohio bourbon. It was it was the Ohio's very first bottled in bond bourbon, made up around Chardon, Ohio, up by Cleveland. They also have a farm. You know, they sell honey. They do other things besides the bourbon.
So they have a distillery there.
Yes,
They do.
they do their
everything.
own stuff.
Do they accelerate it like a lot of Ohio bourbons?
Don't know.
We'll find out.
We will find out.
Tune
Stay
in
tuned.
to Bourbon or
Ohio
Ohio Bourbon
Bourbon
Times.
Times.
OBT. No, I have seen Tom's Foolery. I have not seen the Bottle and Bond. If that's not the everyday one.
It's not the every. They have a Tom's Foolery bourbon, Tom's Foolery rye, and bottled in bond.
I think I've only seen the bourbon.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything
That's
else.
that copper wax.
Yeah, like a goldish copper.
Yeah.
I just feel like I've been not burned by, but I mean, well, sort of.
He's
The-
pissed
the
about
flavor.
Indian
I'm not.
Creek.
No, I'm not pissed. It was Andy's number 5.
Andy's number 5 pissed us all off. Can we be honest about
I'm
this?
just pissed I can't get my
No,
$50 back.
we can't.
And I tell you
We
what,
can't be honest about it because
I can't.
I liked it.
You like?
well, here's the good thing for him though is that like you saw like when he came in like bottles that have been left over. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things.
Oh,
that,
yeah.
And Jake's over enough that it's basically like part of his collection too, but unless Monday happens. But
Right, exactly.
No, but it's one of those things like when we were just doing Whiskey Wednesdays,
Uh-huh.
and like we kind of tried to switch off to a point. You know what I mean? He was so far into it that I couldn't keep up with it. But there was the week that I was like, "Hey man, I got a new bottle.
Great
Ladies number
looking
5.
bottle,
Fucking
isn't it?
looks killer.
It's awesome.
Oh,
It's $50, $49.99. It's
Beautiful
gotta be good.
bottle.
Gotta be.
gotta
And it's
be.
Ohio. Like this is fucking great.
oh.
And it tasted like corn water, and it was the only
That's
bottle.
an insult to corn water everywhere.
The only bottle that I actually said to Jake at the end of the night when we were all tipsy, I'm like, "You want to take this?"
Oh.
And he did. And
I still have it.
You know, and,
Well, you obviously loved it if you still have it.
and in fairness,
Right.
God,
After it was bull.
Hey,
Oh,
I tried it
fuck.
again this weekend.
How was it?
It was great.
Was it though?
Yeah.
you're fucking killing me. Over
What'd you drink before it?
A lot. But no.
Don't doubt it.
It's just one of those ones, like you said, this one's interesting.
Yeah,
Like the bond.
it
and
is
Lilliard.
industry.
That's what Andy's old number 5 is to me. It's just like imagine for people that I imagine it being if you could take the very first corn whiskey that anyone ever distilled, that's what it tasted like.
You know what? I could see that.
If there was, it's like a bad moonshine. Like it's like, hey man, in the middle of Prohibition, I got this. It tastes like corn, but it'll get you fucked up. It's medicinal,
Fuck, I'll take it.
but it tastes
Yeah.
like pure corn. Do you want some? Like it's got alcohol in it? Yeah. I got you.
I got you.
I got you.
And in fairness, in fairness, I suspect and hope that that Old Andy's number 6 will be a little bit better.
I don't think there's a
You
number
went.
6.
There needs to be a number 6. If ever the number 6 was screened for
What was 1 through 4?
1 through 4,
I'm just kidding.
I don't even want to fucking know about 1 through 4.
That one guy never really recovered. No, I just.
What were you gonna ask?
No, you went to the distillery. It was actually a cool experience. Yeah.
It's
Dayton area.
Yeah, it's Springfield, Dayton area,
And we're not dog. I mean, we
No,
don't
we're
like it.
having
We don't
fun.
like it. No, it's all with all, you know.
But the
I know they probably, if they
distillery-
are listening, if they ever listen, it's got to be
the
terrible
distillery.
here. But
Yeah, the distillery.
That was Columbus Alive that said that.
come on.
I'm kidding.
The distillery itself was very, very cool,
I've heard that.
and it's just it's how Willet used to be. If you know, Scott will know. Steve never got to experience Willet as a smaller distillery, but it's even smaller than that, where they have maybe 5 or 6 employees, 3 full-time employees, and 2 of them is a husband and wife. You know what I mean?
Which is fun. I mean, again, so I always bring it back, you know, kind of my role here is that it's the same thing with cigars. It's like you like the rep, you like the idea, you like the story, you like the packaging, you like all that stuff. And going back to my previous point, you light up the cigar and you're like,
No,
this is what you went with?
Damn it.
Why did you pick? Do you think this is good? Like, I really want to ask you, what are you getting from this cigar? What do you get? Like, you know, let's drink this bottle together and explain it to me. Explain your thought process to me on why
I want to understand.
this is what you bottled. And I will say this too, though. There are probably some people that actually like that.
Yeah.
80s number 5. There are people that like the cigars I don't like. I can tell that sometimes when a cigar manufacturer is utilizing a master blender that may be blending to their palate, their own palate, that I'm not there. We're that far apart on the fact that like what I enjoy, he won't enjoy or she won't enjoy.
yeah.
It's just that these two people have that many different experiences and flavors growing up, or you know, as you get older, or just you're just wired differently that you just don't like the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I like spicy food. This person doesn't. Whatever it is, you know, it's just so many different things, and we get that. It's hard. It's hard to really push that, and I think being honest is the best way to do it.
Sure.
And joking about it's not a bad thing. You know, I'm not making fun of anyone. I mean, shit, I still see those bottles of stuff that I don't care for, and those cigars
I see
doing well, and you're just like, man, we can't sell it. I can't drink it. I can't smoke. It's just not for me.
You know, and I'm that way with some really high-end bourbons as well. You know, it's not just just Andes. You know, like George T. Stagg. I just don't care for it.
Right.
You know, it's not my thing.
Yeah.
What about William LaRue Weller?
Same way.
Really?
Not a fan. The only one out of the BTAC collection that I'm completely gaga over is the Eagle Rare 17. And that's one of my top favorites.
Have you tried the newest, that 101?
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
Not so much?
I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't, but
So-
I could imagine.
I want to say, as I was talking about Andy's number 5, and it's a good point, but I want to expand it further because I was actually explaining it, you know, after the fact with the cigars. Eric Black says, Steve, remember that quote, "Bourbon is currency," end quote, and as such, don't blow up an Ohio distillery because it doesn't fit your profile. I feel like as he was writing that, I was actually explaining that.
Yeah.
However, what I will say, let me explain this, you know, again, because I'm the cigar guy at times on the podcast. You know, when there is a rep, I'll say this: there's a rep that's repping a company that are putting out cigars that are not hitting my profile. They're not hitting anyone that works in the shop. They're not hitting any, like, all right, we like you as a rep, so we'll bring on these, and they don't move. at some point, because bourbon is currency, the business side of it, that's up to you. If you're moving the products, I mean, you're right. I mean, I'm not trying to be that blogger out there that's just going to dog it and all that stuff. I'm being honest to the point that it's like, you came up with a cool concept. I love that you're in Ohio, and I love the fact that you're doing what you're doing. We're joking about, like, you know, Andy's number 6, what it's going to, like, if I don't tell you, because I know from the cigar side of it, if I tell a rep, like, yeah, man, it tastes great, and you're smoking it, how many boxes do you want? 0. Well, why not? Well, I don't think it's going to really hit our customers. I don't really think, you know, there's a whole lot of buzz around it. No, I'm going to tell you, like, the best I can with some tact, but it's, like, it's not going to hit my profile, but when it comes down to it, if I have enough people, like Scott sitting across the table from me, that we don't know each other that well, you got the same side of it. It's like, it's corn. It's so much corn. So if I'm going to look at it as bourbon as currency, and I want someone from Ohio to do well, it's what are the reviews? If you're doing well, don't fucking listen to me. That's fine. I'm going to give you my opinion and everything else, and I think everyone will. I can sugarcoat it, I can be honest, and I'm sorry that we were joking around about it. It is something that when you are drinking something, you're talking about it, it was not a balanced whiskey. It was not it was straight corn. That's if I was going to give you my honest thing, what do you think of Andy's number 5? For $50, I'm not going to buy it again. Not because it's bad, not because it's very high in corn flavor. Balcony is another one, or Balcones. You know, Brad, who's been on the show before, thanks, Nate, saw that comment. But, like, that's the same thing. That's a $70 bottle of whiskey in Ohio. That's single malt. That also, to me, and it says single malt, tastes like corn. So for me, for $70, I'm not going to buy that bottle. I appreciate Eric saying, you know, don't dog it. I'm not trying to dog it. It's typically for me, I'd rather be honest about it and tell you that, and more importantly, like from the cigar side of it, is that, dude, like the cigars, I love the marketing, I love the story, I love, like I said earlier, but you light it up and it's like, dude, this is not aged tobacco, it's green, it's like, I can tell sometimes when people will be putting out cigars, and I know it from doing the BS project, that to do it, if you're putting out a cigar and you're smaller, it's very, very tempting to try to keep your profit margin up and your costs down. And the way to do that, knowing from the cigar side of it, and I know distillers are different, especially when you're doing it, but hell, that could be from the grain they're getting. That could be from the ingredients. I mean, they could be getting, but to do it and then have it at a price point that it seems like you're doing it the right way, but you're smaller, and then to be so different, I can't be against the fact that you're doing something different. It's just like, you know, to Eric's point and to anyone listening, there's no disrespect there at all for Andy's number 5 or any of their whiskey. It's just I don't care for it.
It doesn't fit my profile.
And that's, I think I was actually saying that as I was finishing that, he popped up. So with the delay, I think we're all on the same page.
And
then you chimed in.
In seriousness, old Andy's number 6 is maybe a different animal to my palate.
Maybe you need to talk to him about it. Being their marketing strategist for Andy's number 6.
Might not want to talk to me anymore, but we'll give it a shot.
Well, I'll tell you this though, is that I know in the cigar industry, and then you talk about like whiskeys, like you were talking about Willet and all that stuff, as they grow and they listen to consumers, and they look at their sales cycles, they look at all that stuff, they will tweak things without changing the name. And then they will maybe rebrand it, or they'll try to push it out there and hope that the people that have had, and I'm saying it for, let's just call it Whiskey X, right? So we're saying the same thing about Whiskey X, and then they don't even really rebrand it. They just hope through the attrition, like really pushing it, keep putting it on the shelves, that new people will do it, and then they'll read comments through all the blogs and everything else and through the reviews, and they're like, corn, I don't taste much at all. And they're like, oh, it must have changed.
No.
Maybe I owe it another shot.
Yeah.
Maybe they change something and they drink it, and then it's just like through the timeline there that all of a sudden I do. All right, everyone's talking about Zany number 5. Maybe it changed.
Right.
So we do a bottle on here or something like that, or I'm like, all right, $50, I'll do it just because I'm curious. Or I'm at a bar and they have it, I'm like, all right, I'll buy a glass. And I take a sip of it, I'm like, yeah, they fucking changed it. This is amazing.
See, now I had the exact reverse experience with, and I was so excited when I saw a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, you guys did a review of Bibb and Tucker.
Yes.
Bibb and Tucker forever has been my jam.
Okay.
I took more crap from my buddies in the bourbon world.
I also have taken crap.
Because I loved Bibb and Tucker.
This guy.
Absolutely adored it. I mean, it was like drinking maple syrup and Kool-Aid.
Do you guys want me to leave the room?
No, I think he's going to say, if I can, I'm going to...
Go ahead.
I think you're going to say it changed for the worse.
It did.
There you go.
I don't know
That's
if
What the hell is going on?
I don't know if I got a bad barrel, if I got a bad batch, because they're all single barrel.
Yeah.
Now I hear some amazing things are coming down the pipe for Bibb and Tucker, is what people are telling me. You know, possibly a 10-year, 12-year single barrel.
That'd be very
I could do
interesting.
that.
Possibly I can.
I can only imagine what the price is though compared to their normal Bibb and Tucker.
80.
I would imagine, but that, you know, to go
About made Nate choke on his smoke there, Steve.
But what I see happening, because I've had a bad bottle of Blanton's.
I have too.
You know, that's the risk you run with a single barrel bottle.
Exactly.
Especially when you're trying to keep it on the shelf,
Right.
right? I mean, it's going to change.
It's a crapshoot. You know.
That's why Booker was so against it. That's
Right.
why Booker No was so against single barrels.
You know, I look for that consistency anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I want to know what it's going to taste like.
It's tough though.
It
Like,
is
to your point
tough.
with single barrel, it's tough.
It's
Unless you're pulling that from the same, you know what I mean? But
It's
we've had
impossible with the single
What was
barrel.
it when we did it? I always asked that when we did the was it Kentucky Spirit?
Yeah.
And
Russell's,
where you know that story stands out, where it was the fact that they thought when they pulled those 2 barrels, like this was going to be Russell's, this was going to be Kentucky, and then they tasted them, and they're like, no, let's just do this.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like, nope, that's that, and that's that.
It was the Prohibition, the Kentucky Spirit, and the Russells that they did.
Yeah.
Almost probably more than a year ago. That it was just based on proof, is what they had devised it as, right?
Right.
And then they tasted it and was like, let's proof this down a hair to make it this, and then that's proof. You know, let's keep this at this to keep it as so and so. But.
All right, Scott, if you come back on, I'm going to say this right now. We're doing Bibb and Tucker when you come back
We're doing Bibb and Tucker.
We're doing Bibb and
For
Tucker.
the second time?
Yes.
Yeah.
That'll be it. Like, that's where we get, like, the, you know, when stories like this come up, it's like, hey, what are we drinking tonight? Bibb and Tucker.
Bibb and
Scott's
Tucker.
coming on.
It's got to be a recent bottle release.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I wanted to ask Scott, and I'm sure that everyone is wondering, how is the publication going to be with OBT, in Ohio Bourbon Times? Where is it going to be magazine form, or are you thinking just straight traditional?
Oh, it's going to be a traditional newspaper.
So how can...
Not straight. It's still like you said, Columbus Alive, so it's like a new newspaper.
Yeah, 11 by 11.
It's not your old school,
Not
flip
your
it
old
up.
school, no.
Dude, that'd be kind of cool, dude.
It would be kind of cool.
Like one...
Also twice as expensive.
Really? Like,
Yeah,
I'm saying,
I
like,
need more advertisers.
I'm saying, I know.
I'll
we
stop
talked.
back.
All right. I'm saying go black and white, keep the cost down, go old school.
Well, we are going to have limited color. You know, I want that front page to pop.
Yeah.
You know, and I want the, you know, want other sections to pop as well.
Every year at the anniversary of Prohibition, that publication would be really cool.
Dude, I love
old
that.
school,
Straight
black and white, not like clear pictures, like all like, you know, like do a heavy filter like of like drawing.
lettering
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, that would be. I mean,
And talk shit like these guys did.
but like gentlemen though.
This is
Yeah.
the best.
judgment and integrity.
That might be cool if you do get like that when you get that following. It's like to put one out there that's sitting in the place and you open it up and you have to like flip it open like a 1920 newspaper.
Yeah.
How? But when this first publication comes out, how can someone get a hold of it?
Well, there's 2 ways you can get a hold of it, and I'm so happy you asked.
I knew you would be.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I didn't see this one coming. How fortuitous is my luck.
Hashtag sarcastic.
Yes, hashtag sarcasm.
Yes. Big.
We'll have 10,000 copies. 10,000 newspapers is a shit ton of newspapers.
It's a lot.
By anyone's standards. That is more than the daily circulation of my hometown newspaper these days, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And it's a monthly, so...
Statewide?
Statewide.
Okay.
Largest percentage of it is going to be distributed in Central Ohio, just for logistical reasons. In time, initially we will also be distributing in Cincinnati and Cleveland area. In time, I would like to have separate editions for the other markets so we can delve more deeply into local content for each specific market, which I think would just be cool as shit.
Yeah.
And that's an industry term, newspaper industry terms, cool as shit.
I've read about that.
Yes. Oh.
In a newspaper.
In a newspaper. That being said, you will have that option to go out and find it at a bar, golf course, shooting range, cigar shop, someplace that us bourbon guys like to hang out. Or you can always subscribe to it. Even though it's a free newspaper, we'll have different levels of subscription. All of them will get you a copy mailed to your front door each and every month.
Yeah.
With different levels of swag that comes along with it.
Swag. Did you hear that, everyone?
Swag.
So what's the deal? I know you came in and talked to Steve while I wasn't able to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So
shop.
Yeah. So what's the deal with the tinderbox? Is that
we're hoping to carry it if he wants to put it in there so that we can actually have it there for people. We'd love to, like I told him, we'd love to sponsor it. It's just not something that is in our budget at this point. So we'd love, that's where we can support through another avenue, right?
Absolutely.
And try to keep getting the word out, obviously, through this venture. And then obviously if it's sitting there in there for people to read, that's where we can help benefit.
We're going to have a cigar corner in the paper. We're going to have a beer corner in the paper. I guarantee you we're not going to have a tequila or a flavored vodka corner anywhere in the paper.
Yeah. No risotto or not risotto. Rispado.
No.
Tequila.
No. Talk about memories. Bring
everyone's got a bad tequila story.
Sweet mother of Jesus. To this day.
Everyone's got one.
Oh, it was the 80s, and for the life of me, a swallow of tequila cannot make it past right here in my throat.
Phil, there's a bottle of tequila in there if you want to grab it.
It will drag out things that I ate as a child. That's how bad it is. So, the smell.
How were you when you drank this?
Almost legal, maybe.
Yeah, that means not.
Sounds about right.
Remarkably close.
No, that's good. We would like to at the Tinderbox. We'd like to even if you did find another cigar shop to be in the publication, as an advertiser, we'll still support it.
And
do.
And it's a part of a greater community.
Exactly.
It's when how's that saying go? A rising tide raises all ships. Yeah. And our greater community, and I'm including not just bourbon, but the cigar community,
sure.
The craft beer community, which is just stupid vibrant, especially in Central Ohio.
It's lasted longer than I thought.
Oh, and it just keeps getting cooler and cooler.
Yeah, absolutely.
in fact, Olentangy River Brewing Company.
Never heard of it.
Oh God, they're brand new.
There you go.
Started by an old neighbor of mine, honestly. They've got a beautiful, beautiful facility over off of 23 at Polaris.
Really?
Back kind of behind that Nationwide Conference Center there.
Okay.
Beautiful tap room. They're currently aging beer in 2 bourbon barrels from a couple of OPA picks.
Which is
very cool.
So, and those are going to be ready in the next month or two. I definitely encourage you to swing by. They've got a just great selection.
Very nice.
Brand new, state-of-the-art facility. You'll go nuts when you go in there if you like beer.
So speaking on our topic of evening, what can bourbon do for you? Starting off our closing remarks, like I said before, as much as we've talked about the community and the good that comes behind it, I think it's important to notice the fact of this conversation right here, and the one that we have every Wednesday with a new guest.
Right.
And the camaraderie that we share, that Steve didn't know Scott from Sam, a couple hours ago.
Sam no good.
I don't know, Sam's a good dude, man.
Yeah, I heard things. Streets are saying shit.
Selective hearing, do you have?
Exactly. But it's. I think it's.
Go on.
Yeah. No, you guys are having a ball now. No, I think it's something that is unmatched, and it's a spirit that is making our spirits whole, in a sense.
I like that.
And
It's a t-shirt.
that is a t-shirt right there. And it's allowing us to venture out and meet people that otherwise we would have no reason to meet and no reason to conversate with. And it's creating a community within itself that has created so much more for others. And what I mean by that is and I don't want to keep reiterating the same thing, but it's making nostalgia and history great again. It's making this point of rawness and purity real again for most of us. And I think that's what we really need in our society. It's allowing us to stop. It's allowing us to enjoy. It's allowing us to take time and reflect for things that are, unbeknownst to us, just a product to consume. And it's creating something greater than that. It's creating relationships. It's creating family relationships between family members that otherwise wouldn't understand each other. It's creating friendships that you wouldn't even conversate with the other person if it wasn't for bourbon, if it wasn't for whiskey. And it takes time to enjoy these things. It takes time to understand, and it takes time to make yourself reflect on what you're enjoying, on what you like, what you're thinking at that time. Most importantly, it takes time. It makes you take time to stop. And in this day and age, we don't do that. Like I said at the beginning, we're always busy. Things are good, but we're always busy. And this isn't that. Bourbon isn't busy. Cigars isn't busy. They just are what they are. And our relationships amongst this table and our viewers, and far more than that, is much more than what this spirit was ever created for. And I think that's really, really important to recognize the next time you speak to someone that has a glass in their hand and you ask what they're drinking.
Could not agree more. Couldn't agree more. Man, I don't know that I could put it any better than that.
That was probably my best closing remarks I've ever had on this podcast.
Oh my God. Good night, everybody. Tip your waitress. couldn't be better said than that. It can, in the wrong circumstances, it can bring out the worst in us. I mean, it can.
Right.
But in the perfect world, and I think the vast majority of my experiences, it tends to bring out the best. You know, whether it's one pour with friends or way more than one pour with friends, it brings out the best. And even if it's something that the palate doesn't necessarily enjoy, you can share that together and be a part of something greater than yourself. And that's the beauty that I've found in it. I didn't expect it. I certainly didn't expect it. I didn't expect to be swept up into this whirlwind of the bourbon world. I didn't expect to become passionate about it. I didn't expect to understand it. And I certainly didn't expect to write about it.
Right.
And to write about it from my heart and with passion. So nobody's more shocked about this than me. But here we are. And it's really been a pleasure being here with you guys tonight, and really an honor.
Appreciate it.
I can't thank you guys enough. Thank you.
It's amazing.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah. And all I'll say is that I think that I can speak personally that on top of all that, you know, where you didn't think that you would have this passion, this creativity, this venture that you have, I can relate 100%. First and foremost, we have the three of us that you can see on camera and you've heard on the audio. We have three other people now. Phil Davis actually joined us, who was actually chiming in on the Facebook Live.
AKA the Bourbon Monster.
Bourbon Monster. I'll say this, other than cigars and bourbon and whiskey, I wouldn't know anyone in here, most likely.
Yeah.
So, you know, the community, the friendships that are created, to my point earlier about the common ground, the common interest, the hobby that turns into a lifestyle. No one, this whole thing that Jake and I are doing with the podcast and having these people around on a Wednesday night, if this shit didn't exist, like Phil would be at his house right now instead of, you know, after work. Nate would be doing what he's doing instead of working in different cigar shops and being here. Dustin being a part of this podcast from the beginning, you being a guest and coming over to my house. Otherwise, you and I never would have met. And obviously, you would never be at my house. And Jake and I.
You don't know that.
Yeah, I have some motion sensors. That's who was tripping them today. No, I look at it as that I also will speak to this to the extreme in a sense that this has, in the most positive way for me, become my life. The whiskey, the cigars is, you know, that's my source of income. That's you know, that's what's putting food on the table. And doing the whiskey thing is, you know, beyond that. That for me, it was cigars first and then whiskey. You know, it's like an extension of that. The common ground of the two industries and the spirit and the tobacco is something that I look at is that the relationships that come from all of that have made my life better. And like I said, as I look around the garage this week, other weeks, I look at the people that are tuning in on the podcast, on the Facebook Live, on the YouTube, the thousands of people that are actually interested to some extent. I think that speaks volumes, obviously, to what all of this leads to.
Yeah.
And everything we talked about tonight.
Agreed. I wholeheartedly agree. So, thank you very much, Scott GK of OBT, Ohio Bourbon Times, for being on tonight. It's been a pleasure.
Appreciate it, my friend.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Been amazing.
Honor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tri-State Bourbon Aficionados, for donating these glasses. Steve and Scott have the Rocks glasses. Which
Killer, man.
Hope you guys like it. Deep etching on it. I have the Glencairn.
That is very nice.
So thank you, Tony, and the rest of the Tri-State Bourbon Aficionados for giving us those. Thank you, Scott, for bringing the Bond in Lilliard bourbon, really, that comes out of Wild Turkey Distillery. And they also make an Old Rippy that we didn't really discuss.
Yeah, I'm going to be looking for that bugger. It's
I am
supposed
too.
to be coming to Ohio as well.
I am too. It's going to be about 10 to 12 years, but it was also a collaboration along with Bond and Lilliard with Wild Turkey Distillery and bringing back a bourbon from the dead, pretty much. And so, what's this last
I was going to
cigar?
say thanks to the sponsors. We're smoking the, like I said earlier, the Upmann Banker, the Banker, which the Upmann brothers, I think German brothers that came over to Cuba, created something originally in Cuba. That's why it says, I think, 1844, somewhere around there. Yeah, 1844. This is something that they actually did in Cuba, like a lot of brands. Altadis has the brand now, and they have tried to continue the tradition of the Upmann brothers on making these different cigars. You've got, to my knowledge, Ecuadorian, Nicaraguan, and Honduran tobacco in this. Dominican, excuse me, not Honduran. Dominican tobacco in this.
It's a good cigar.
It's a great cigar. It had a popularity following as far as that goes a while. We just brought it back on. I was happy that we brought another Altadis product back into Tinderbox at Easton, which is another sponsor of ours, and I will be lighting up a BS Silver after this. But yeah, check it out. Again, the CAO Brazilia, we smoked it in a couple weeks. We're hoping to still have Rick Rodriguez, Master Blender from CAO, on, and have something special from him. And I think Jonathan, the rep, is going to be on as well. Jonathan Herring, he just got married, so he's definitely not listening because I think he's on his honeymoon tonight. So yeah,
it's going to be great.
Thanks to all our sponsors, and thank you to everyone else out there on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, on iTunes, Spotify, yada, yada, yada. Everything, guys, thank you very much.
Where can they find you, Scott? Where can people find Ohio Bourbon Times?
Our website is under development. Currently should be up and running here in the next week or so.
Okay.
Right now we have a social media presence at Ohio Bourbon Times on Facebook.
Facebook is killing it.
Facebook's killing it for us, and at the Ohio Bourbon Times on Instagram.
Very
Only
nice.
because I forgot the password for at Ohio Bourbon
Just
Times.
reset it, man. Just reset it. We've forgotten it on ours.
Yeah, I can't find it.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I love it. So go follow Scott and OBT, Ohio Bourbon Times. Show some love. We thank him very, very much for being on tonight. Thank you, Tinderbox at Easton, Altadis, be a cigar brand. And this has been an amazing podcast. Thank you, everyone. Please leave us a 5-star review, and cheers.
Cheers.
Not